Good morning. I was about to
Morning.
say good evening,
Yeah.
but good morning, folks, and welcome to the first episode, the maiden voyage of sorts of Cover One Uncovered, a really cool idea, concept, tying in with what Erik and myself, along with Kendall Mirsky, what we do every week in
Mhm.
the Cover One film room, not just looking at specific, which we're going to, but looking at specific tendencies, aspects, and areas of the team with advanced metrics and film, but also, Erik, tying it in with the process that we use in going about developing these things, whether it's charting these plays, whether it's what metrics we use and where we go to find them, how we tie it in with the film, just kind of analyzing certain areas of the game from an X's and O's perspective, but also tying it in with a little bit of a peek behind the curtain into our process and how we go about putting these things together, which also,
Yeah.
not to pat ourselves on the back or anything, ties into how scouts and coaches put together their game plans, how they analyze film, how they self-scout and put things together week to week.
Yeah. We're both really excited about this Uncovered series, and it's something we're going to do from time to time, specifically for our insiders. So you guys that are insiders already and premium subscribers, you're going to have access to these several times a year. Greg's going to be doing his own version of this stuff with cap stuff and nerding out with the numbers and contracts and stuff like that eventually. But we figured, we had some time this weekend. There's no game today with the bye week. This was a cool idea and time to dive into, again, behind the scenes type stuff, how we, analyze a matchup, whether it's pre or post game, how we get some of the analytics, some of the tools and resources that we use and pay for by Cover One, so that all of our contributors can do things like this. Saying Giles saying FYI, I don't know if it's a me thing, but it didn't automatically start the video for me. So we're just gonna ramble a little bit and let you guys join us. Grab your cup of coffee and your beverages and get in here when you can. But no, it's cool because it gives you a behind the scenes look at how we do things. Kind of gives our secrets away a little bit, but that's nothing new when it comes to scouting and film breakdowns across the league and coaching in the NFL. But it's fun. It's fun because we're going to show you different ways that not just film analysts, but coaches go about things. These are things that I used to do for the team that I used to coach. And even when I played, when it came to the film stuff and analyzing things, these are tools and tricks that, players use, that coaches use, and obviously analysts like us use. So it should be fun, man. And if you guys have any questions, we want it to be interactive, right, Ant?
Yes.
We want people to shoot our questions to us and we'll bring them up on the screen. We'll stop, we'll pause, and we'll hash it out. And especially when we get to the film, if you have a question about how we sort things, how we analyze things, or more importantly, the scheme or concept, let us know. We'll stop and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, we really like to drive the whole engagement piece here at Cover One, and especially within the film room. But what we're trying to do with this, Uncovered series and these type of episodes, we're trying to drive that classroom type setting even further for everyone. So getting as many people into these, live streams for the insiders as possible in order to make it as interactive for you folks. We know what happens in, even the best of times during the film room and other shows. There's so many questions and comments and thoughts coming in, and we want to get to all of them, but sometimes it's just like physically impossible. We want to skew that more towards that engagement piece here in this Uncovered series. So exactly to Erik's point, we could be going over something. We're talking about this run play to Singletary, and we're talking about the O-line and Singletary, but maybe you have a question of what Stephon Diggs did on the backside for some reason. Shoot it out. We are driving this more towards that engagement piece for the insiders, for that premium content aspect, to really answer anything and everything, while also, to Erik's point, giving you folks that behind the scenes peek into how we live, how we exist, how we function, and how scouts and coaches exist and function, and analyzing this all together. So like everything we do here, it is for the people who support us, the people who engage, and the people who want that content. And so we're trying to cater as much to you folks for, you putting your faith in us with your subscription and your support in the variety of forms that it comes in. We want to cater this to you in every which way possible. So the more we get joining us live is awesome, because we want those questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, everything, whatever you got, we're going to pivot, stop, answer it, address it, and then keep on rolling through. And it's another reason that we're really excited for this series.
Yeah, and if you know someone that may be interested in this but isn't a premium subscriber, take the YouTube link, send it to them. Give them that access and show them what we do and how we, the type of content we bring. It'll help obviously us, trend and get more exposure for us. And so, as Anthony said, this is for you guys. And this all started with a simple poll on Twitter, what you guys wanted to see analyze. And we talk about self-scouting in the bye week, what teams do. It's self-scouting. And so they look at, everything they've run up until this point on, in all three phases, and they analyze any tendencies that are showing up when it comes to play calling, any personnel groupings that may show up a little too often, kind of keying or cueing different plays and for the defense, if we're talking the offensive side of the ball. So self-scouting, it helps in many ways, but the main three are it can help your practice time. If you uncover a certain tendency or personnel grouping that you're calling a specific play on quite frequently, it'll help you, obviously change that tendency and throw a curveball at the opposing team. And that'll help your practice time, because then you can focus in on, okay, well, we're running this smash concept too often on 3rd and long. Like, we need to switch it up, and we need to commit more time to running this concept so that we can skill this when we get into the game. So it helps you in many different ways. But in the end, it's to improve your theme, whether it's, offense, defense, or special teams. And it really puts the analytics, the numbers, and film together, right, Ant? Like, you're able to compare and contrast those things. And again, you got to have both if you want to talk nuance, right, Anthony? You got to have both, because you may show a certain tendency on this down and distance or in this situation, but you have to go to the film to analyze why it's not working or why it is working. And that is really the most important thing when you're talking about self-scouting.
So well said. It's that self-scouting piece and analysis really in general today it's that marriage of analytics and film. And I feel like too often you get the old heads who are just like, no, film, it's just film. I don't need any of this analytics and all this stuff. And then you have the new age of people who are like, I don't need to watch film. I can just crunch these numbers and show you everything. Numbers can lie. Film tells more of the truth than numbers, but the numbers in marriage and in conjunction with the film put that holistic picture together. And really, I think having what's good for us is, because we grind the film a lot, but being able to watch the film, a lot, heavy eyeball raise right there. Yeah. We grind the film, and then being able to put together what we see and what we're charting into an analytic form and fashion to be able to see, like, okay, they are running, like, it looks like they're running a ton of RPOs, and then we can go and check the numbers and be like, oh, wow, yeah, because they've run this many in the red zone, which is equal to like 18%. Holy hell. And then that ties into our, numbers or our film analysis of like, okay, well, RPOs are struggling in the red zone and they've run it this many times. And it sets you off down these different paths.
Rabbit holes, right?
Exactly.
we go into rabbit holes like every week when we go into the film room. Like, you have theories, right? And like, we have theories. Okay, it looks like they're seeing a lot more too high coverages on this down or in this area of the field. And then you start testing those theories, not just with the film, but also with the numbers, because then you look at it from a micro sense. Okay, in this game, they saw, cover 2 on 3rd and medium this many times, but for the year, it's actually not all that often. So you kind of go down those rabbit holes, and sometimes you can, get lost. You can get lost and you forgot where you started. So these tools are great, but sometimes, like, you just go down so many different rabbit holes because you're testing different theories.
Exactly. We Alice in Wonderland this thing very hard in terms of going down those rabbit holes. But that's exactly the point, right? Like, because you're trying to establish the correct correlation and connection between what you're seeing and putting together the truth, because we use the word all the time, narratives, right? We love to crush narratives because there are things that get incorrectly established, whether it's due to sample size, whether it's due to not looking at the film, whether it's not using the proper analytics and metrics. There's a lot of narratives that can be created and can be established that aren't necessarily accurate. And that is, in our minds, it's extremely frustrating, because especially when it comes from those with more of a following and more important, of like a word in that sense. When you say something, I'm not going to use names. I don't want to call anybody out. For example, like a prominent ESPN analyst uses a play and is like, man, the Buffalo Bills are a great screen team. And it's like, that is horribly false.
Yes.
Like, but that narrative gets created then because the common person will see that and be like, oh, yeah, Bills are a great screen team, but it's not. And the reason we know that they're really not is because of the film, is because of the analytics, because of us looking at things situationally and looking at it exactly to your point, Eric, across the board. Like, is this aspect of the team just due to one game? Is it due to one situation? Is it who they are holistically? Was it due to this one game because of an injury or some variable? By using the film and the advanced metrics that we use, you're able to start to reduce the variables in that process. And it's the reason we're really able to narrow down and hone in on the root causes and the root solutions of problems, and being able to kind of figure things out, chart, and put it all together. And well played, Kellen. I see you there. But also, Eric, to your point, that goes in with what this isn't just unique to us. This is what, you talk about that self-scouting piece. It's done in that self-scouting aspect, which we know Sean McDermott and the Bills are huge proponents of. McDermott mentions self-scouting at least several times a year. It should be on everybody's bingo card at this point. And then it also ties into the scouting piece on the other side, because you want to be able to identify your trends and your areas of opportunity before your opponent can. So that way you don't go into a game and they have identified something that you haven't identified, and then they crush you with it, and you're left to react instead of being proactive, heading it off at the pass and going into an opponent matchup with that, which is huge in any game, but especially as you move forward in the regular season and more tape becomes available and people are able to kind of dive into who you are.
Yeah, it's funny because, you're talking about like social media and the talking heads will post things like that. And you're like, no, that's not true. And, we'll go ahead and, try to crush that narrative. But again, we're only so big as far as followers go. And people think we're just trying to be contrarian to be contrarian, but no, like
we're trying to be accurate.
Yeah, we're trying to be accurate. And so when we call people out, and that's one of the few times that we really do that, is when we have to, people call it punching up, but really you have to get ahead of that, because as you said, that narrative will catch fire, and then it's like, okay, then I'm in our mentions for several weeks, we're gonna have to defend that. And so we try to crush those as quickly as we can, whether it's with film or with the analytics. But we try to approach it from both angles. And when we're talking about self-scouting, let's get into some of the tools and resources we use. And to start, I'm going to bring up NFL GSIS. That's one of the basic statistical websites that a lot of people use. Hopefully you guys can see that. This is just the rankings by team. You're going to see third down, fourth down, red zone, and we're looking at red zone. So I got it sorted by red zone here, guys. And this is one of those, stat sites by the NFL that basically tracks raw numbers. And so you see, I wish I could bring AQ on right now to get into his analytics versus raw numbers rant, because he would be here for like 20 minutes ripping this off and talking about how you can't just analyze things through raw numbers, total yards on offense or defense. Like, none of that stuff really gives any context.
So misleading.
It's so misleading. And so, but I want to start off with that, because I'm going to show you how, how different these stat sites are. And so, again, some of those tools. So if we're looking at red zone column right here, you can see the Bills are ranked 18th in the red zone, 54.55% in the red zone. So again, just below average when it comes to the league on this place. So this is a site I use a lot for, general categories like this, but more so I only go for them during the game day when we're looking at individual numbers, raw numbers like tackles and yardage and stuff like that. And then play-by-play data. It's the official play-by-play data. So this is what I use to help chart stuff we're going to see later. And it's what I used in the film area. But talk about, Anthony, some of the basic stats that, maybe annoy you, or you don't like to use, or you do like to use.
I think we'll start with like the total yardage piece always gets me. Like so-and-so threw for 3. Well, again, I hate ragging on individual people, but it's like the Jimmy Garoppolo piece, right? Where it's like, yeah, but Jimmy threw for like 340 yards today. And it was like, well, what kind of 340 yards did he throw for? Was he, dicing the defense up, or was he throwing like a tunnel screen to Deebo Samuel, who took it to the house for 75 yards? And so he threw like an average depth of target of like -0.2, and Deebo just like took it to the house. But you look at the total volume standpoint, and it's like, wow, he really had a day today. And I think that example can be extrapolated and placed across anything and everything when it comes to the box score stats or the raw stats, or how many people we've talked about it with the Tremaine Edmonds piece, right? Well, people will be like, yeah, but he doesn't have a lot of total tackles. Or people love to look at total tackles and be like, yeah, well, look at this guy. Like, he had 14 tackles this game. He's a tremendous linebacker. It's like, well, where did those tackles come from? Are they coming past the first down marker where, yeah, it's good to still make the tackle, but that's not as good of a tackle that's made for 4 yards on 3rd and 6 that starts a 4th down. Like, would you rather have a tackle 8 yards downfield on 3rd and 6 or a tackle at 4 yards on 3rd and 6? One is leading to a 1st down. The other's leading to a 4th down. And I think that volume standpoint really gets me from that standpoint. I don't even really use them as much anymore. I use them just for like fun and MVP conversations and just to kind of put some things in perspective. But I'm much more of tackles is a good example. Like, I don't really look at raw tackles. How many stops do you have? What's your stop percentage? Looking at that piece and seeing, okay, what are you like? How are you really impacting?
Or drives, right? Like during the game, they give you real time stats of like drive to drive updates, so you can have the drive data. Like that stuff's important, and so we don't use it all that often, but when it comes to like basic landmark stuff, we do pop it down from time to time. Especially, as I said, I use this during the game. After the game, I don't really come back to this at all because again, we like more context, so we use other websites.
Yeah, 1,000%. And that's that piece, right? We're always trying to, as Andy says here in the comments, like, it's almost like context matters. That's exactly what it is, right? Despite the fact that people tell you numbers don't lie, numbers can lie. If I tell you, I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm 150-0 in one-on-one basketball games, you're like, oh, you must be a good basketball player. And I'm like, no, I only play 5th graders. It's like, okay, so your wins mean nothing. Like, raw numbers can lie. They are misleading. Garbage time stats for quarterbacks. Okay, you're throwing for 425 yards. Is 200 of it coming in the last like 3 drives because your team is down by 30 points and the defense doesn't care anymore? Like, context matters. And I think that's where we really dive into the advanced metrics and steer away from box score stats, because box score stats, while they do have a purpose, I think they're more lacking context because they just cast a wide net and then pick up whatever they can. And it lacks that attention to detail. It lacks that context, which really puts together a full picture.
Right. And so to get a better picture, a full picture, as Anthony just said,
one of our favorites.
So this is one of the sites that we go to immediately, once those, especially the day after, once the stats kind of drop and the DVOAs are updated. You hear Aaron talk about it all the time. You hear Anthony talk about it all the time. We use it for the film room. But DVOA, especially on Football Outsiders, is really the go-to when we're talking context and analytics. And so for this episode, the red zone looks, right? The red zone offense we're going to talk about. You're going to see that the Bills, their red zone overall is not all that good. It's right around middle of the pack, I think. Hold on, let me sort this properly. So 15th overall, guys. So you saw 18th in NFL GSIS. With a little more context, they're 15th, but then they split it with rush and pass. They're 9th in passing DVOA in the red zone, but rushing, they're 29th overall. So talk about Football Outsiders, Anthony, what you like, what you don't like, what you go to it for. It's really one of our favorite websites. I know that from top to bottom.
It really is. And I think it's because it's like an efficiency. DVOA in particular is what I really love about Football Outsiders, but they have so much. I mean, just the snap percentage usage for players and positions week to week and on the year, the advanced line statistics, I feel like this is a promo for Football Outsiders, but like the points per drive and net yards per drive, offense and defense, it really gives you these neat, like niche detail pieces for you to add further context. But, here being in DVOA, I love DVOA because it measures a team's efficiency by comparing success on every single play to a league average based on situation and opponent. So this eliminates the idea of, you're a really good defense, but you've only played these horrible quarterbacks. DVOA accounts for that. DVOA accounts for situation and opponent and factors that into their formula, and they use it to evaluate teams, sides of the ball, players, and it takes every single play during a season and compares it to every other play to a league average baseline based on situation. It doesn't just measure the raw stats like yardage. It measures yardage towards a first down. So this ties into something that I was talking about a little bit ago when it came to like situational plays, because they'll take into account, like if you get 5 yards on 3rd and 4, that's worth more than 5 yards on
Right.
1st and 10 and much more than 5 yards on 3rd and 12. And say they add everything in based on situation. They factor things in based on the red zone, and they boil it down to a percentage. It's really a holistic view, which is always what we're looking for, that holistic piece. We're trying to eliminate variables, reduce variables, so we can put proper context to everything and draw proper conclusions, proper correlations, and be able to diagnose. And they're absolutely key for that, as is this next website that you're bringing up here, which is there's some rabbit holing that can happen with
Oh
Football
my
Outsiders,
God, yes.
but SIS here is the Alice in Wonderland for us.
Yeah, it really is. Because again, you can see some of the filters on the screen. You can really
It's
whittle
wild.
down situations, down distance, time in the game, motion, no motion. There's a ton of stuff at Sports Info Solutions. So we looked at Football Outsiders and we saw the red zone. They're not bad in passing, 9th overall DVOA when it comes to passing in the red zone, but you saw 29th in rushing DVOA in the red zone. So then you start asking yourself, like, okay, why is that happening? So now we can go to SIS. We can go to SIS, and I have it sorted by team rushing. All right. And we're just going to look at the Bills to start to kind of get an idea of 2021 versus 2022. Right. So we're going to look at the Bills rushing overall. This is all, rushes. So quarterback scrambles are going to be in there, design QB runs, QB sneaks, QB kneels, all that stuff's in there. I got it sorted. So at the very bottom, hopefully you guys can see this. So again, six games versus 17 games. If we're looking at scoring, all right, again, scoring in the red zone, the Bills are struggling in that area. Why? Let's look at the rushing, because they're 29th in DVOA. Look how many touchdowns they had last year rushing in the red zone. So this is just regular season. You see 20 touchdowns by the Bills in the red zone rushing versus only 3 this year. Again, sample size is quite small still, but 146 attempts in the red zone, only 3 touchdowns, Anthony. Like right there, you're like, okay, that's going to affect many different advanced analytics as well. And again, we're going to whittle it down even more, but talk about scoring when it comes to rushing, because, prior years, it was one thing that we always went to with Josh Allen in the red zone under Daboll was Josh Allen, like use him in the red zone as a rusher, right?
Yeah, that's been kind of that chess piece in the red zone. You have this big athletic quarterback who is a threat with his arms.
You're right, Anthony. You said that I don't have it filtered for red zone yet. So let me filter it. Yeah, it's absolutely correct. I'll go ahead and fix that. Go ahead, continue.
Yeah, I saw the 146 attempts. I was like, that can't
my
be
bad. That can be right.
You're good. You've got this big, huge quarterback in Josh Allen who can do all these things with his arm and his head now, but who's also a problem because of his size and his strength and because he's mobile and athletic. So he's like that ultimate chess piece in the red zone. But you go to that self-scouting piece, defenses also know that. So defenses are trying to limit Josh Allen's arm and his legs now. Those are your 2 primary, focuses if you're an opposing defense, which means, the option that you would try to lean on, or ideally like to lean on, I guess, would be the running back running aspect in the red zone. But the Bills have been unsuccessful thus far this year.
So now that we have it whittled down just to red zone, you can see they only have 25 attempts through the first 6 games in the red zone. Only 2 touchdowns, 19 touchdowns in the red zone last year. So now, as you talked about, now teams are doing a better job of limiting Josh Allen when he does run. But more importantly, we want to access through SIS how many of those attempts and touchdowns came from running back. So we can go in there and take out that position. So we take out quarterback. So 19-2 with as a whole in the red zone rushing for the Bills. Now, when we whittle it down to everyone except quarterback, 12 touchdowns, 0. So 12 in 2021 from running backs, and then 0 in 2022.
And only 10 attempts.
10 attempts.
Crazy.
10 attempts, which is pretty important because it was 10 attempts. Obviously, this year it was 20. I think it was 20 by running backs last year, and then the year before was 27, I believe. But just running backs alone. So yeah, 10 attempts is a super small sample size, even over the course of 6 games.
And so that's where, okay, so now again, like tracing it all back of how we start to like rabbit hole, like we see what's going on Football Outsiders and we see the DVOA perspective. It's like, okay, cool. Like let's whittle it down and filter here into SIS. And then we filter down and we see what's going on. And now we see these 10 attempts. And then it's like, okay, what's the cause of, what's the chicken and egg in this scenario? Are they only running it 10 times because they're not good at running it in the red zone? Or are they not good at running it in the red zone just because they're not trying to run it in the red zone? Like, what's the source? What's the causation? And what's the causality? And now, we'll see these numbers, and then you can start to go further. Like, Erik, you're in that totals column there on the bottom left. Like, you can go over to rates, you can go over to value. Like, rates will show you, boom, like yards per attempt, yards after contact per attempt. And then as you're highlighting those awesome percentages starting there on the right side, you start to get that broken tackle plus missed tackle percentage per attempt. And then how, the percentage of carries that are hit at the line of scrimmage, the percentage of carries that are stuffed. Stuff on SIS is counted as runs that gain 0 or fewer yards. Design gap percentage, which is just literally like the percentage of runs that are gap runs. Like all this aspect of how it whittles it down. And then if you click on the value tab, that's where you start to see the points, boom, that EPA per attempt. So EPA is expected points added. For those who don't know, it's basically, every single play has an expected points for an offense. And obviously, if you get a positive gain, that has a higher expected points added versus if you have a negative play, which would result in a negative points added, because each play is charted against the expected points for a play. So if you do something good and you have a huge chunk gain, that added more, it added a higher probability of you ending that drive in points versus if you got a sack or a loss of yards, something like that. And if you look at that Bills number, you highlighted it there. So carries just by running backs in the red zone this year, their EPA per attempt is negative 0.28. Negative is bad, just in case anybody does not know. And if you factor that in, so we're looking at it just from the Bills, but if you filtered it down to all the teams, that negative 0.28 would be 29th in terms of running back EPA per attempt in the red zone, which is obviously not good. As we start to scroll down there.
That's right.
And see there, you're seeing it. Like, you see that piece, like the only teams that are worse are the Broncos and the Buccaneers. And that's, I think everybody knows the jokes for Russell Wilson and the Broncos offense at this point. The Buccaneers might surprise some people, but they've had injuries to that offensive line. They have not been functional in the run game, which has been, not to get off on a tangent, but largely contributing to the struggles they've had on offense this year, along with injuries to Chris Godwin and how he functions. That's a conversation for another time. But again, this now starts to add, Erik, we're starting to grab these breadcrumbs, right? And start to go on to this trail with these numbers, build these clues, grab these breadcrumbs so that when we dive into the film, we can start to put everything together holistically.
Yeah, let's add some more context. If I have it sorted by attempts in the red zone for running backs, or not just running backs, for basically everyone but the quarterback, because sometimes you have jet sweeps and stuff like that. We lumped it all in there, but you can see 10 attempts is 31st. So 31st in running back attempts in the red zone, or attempts aside from quarterback in the red zone, it's second to last. And they are the only team with no rushing touchdowns from a running back in the red zone. So again, that's telling. And there's a lot of talk about, is Moss going to be benched from here on out? Motor, again, they haven't really broke too many tackles, but again, the sample's kind of small in the red zone. So just things to keep an eye on. As Anthony said, it's a great way to put it, breadcrumbs, right? Just store it away for now, come back to it and see if it opens up some other rabbit hole when we get to the film. But the other thing I want to, kind of look at to kind of frame and reference some of this conversation, I want to go back and go into the Bills. So 2021 versus 2022, we want to sort it by red zone and get a look at the first 6 weeks this year versus the first 6 weeks of last season. So let me get that teed up here and see what some of these numbers that spit out, just again, to get an idea what they're doing versus last year. So we look at touchdowns. Even through the first 6 games last year, the Bills had more rushing touchdowns from everybody, which includes quarterbacks here. I didn't sort that yet. 6-2. So that's obviously a pretty stark contrast. And then when you take the quarterback out, it's 3-0. So it'd be nice to have a running back be a threat in the red zone, Anthony, right? Again, that's just another option that Dorsey's probably still working at. And one of the things that they're going to be analyzing, because you can't just go to Josh Allen in the red zone. You got to have someone that can be a threat from the running back position.
Yeah, you need in the red zone, like, you need to have everything in your bag possible, because, and I don't think this is unique to the Bills, this is everything. Like, as you get closer to the goal line and you get more into the red zone, you have that back line on the end zone, which is a natural cap on everything that you do. So you have less room to operate with. You have less room to work. Defenses also know that. That's usually why in pass coverage, you see more zone coverage as you get closer to the low end of the red zone, as you get closer to the goal line. Because defenses know, like, okay, there's less space to work. We can't get really beat over the top. Let's flood everything underneath with bodies. Let's get into passing windows, passing lanes, squeeze everything down, just kind of muck everything up and muddy everything up. Then when you combine it with having a weapon like Josh Allen with his arms and with his arm and his legs, like we talked about, like that is the primary focus for every single defense. How do we stop Josh Allen? Whether it's the passing game, whether it's his mobility, those are, the MO 1 and 2. So if the Bills were able to have that running game piece with the running backs and being able to impact the game in that way, you have another threat that defenses have to account for. You have another threat that teams have to be like, well, we do have to keep in the back of our mind that this run could be a problem if they give it to Singletary or Cook or Moss or whoever. If the Bills have that pivot, you want to pivot. You want to be able to play rock, paper, scissors. Like I say all the time, if teams are throwing paper at you, cool. You can throw scissors all day and you're good and you can cut paper every single time. What happens when you play a team that can throw rock and that breaks your scissors? Can you throw paper? Like, are you able to have that variability and that versatility? That's a huge piece. And that's why we want that pivot in the run game. And Erik, you're doing an awesome job right now of answering that question for Kellen. So Kellen came into the chat and asked, of these small amount of runs, what down have they run the most on? What's really cool is, so Erik read that and immediately he just scrolled up, and SIS also has that filter. Boom, Erik, if you want to walk them through it there, like you have that filter, so you can just click the different downs and then just see each time. So now we've whittled it down to the Bills red zone running from 2021 through 2022. And now we can check each box and rabbit hole further and see how many runs in the red zone on first down, second down, third down, fourth down, and be able to continue to put that picture together.
Yeah, and this is all stuff you can actually download and pull and create, graphs and charts with. And this is, so out of their 25 attempts in the red zone this year, 11 of them, including the quarterback runs, 11 of them came on first down with no QB runs. Of those 10 attempts in the red zone by running backs and wide receivers and tight ends, blah, 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 5 out of those 10 runs were on first down. So, I mean, I don't see it as much of a tendency because, again, it's such a small sample size. You can't really delve too much into that, but it's something to keep in mind when we get to the film later, because it's not necessarily how many times they're running it, it's what they're running. And we're going to see that later and how that plays out and how teams are blowing up some of those plays, and not just in the red zone, but also on those short yardage situations. There's some concepts in the red zone that are getting blown up. They're also getting blown up in the short yardage situations across the other outside of the red zone. But again, that's something that film is going to hash out, and we're going to get to that here in a little bit.
That's a great tie-in, right? So now you're looking at it from an advanced metrics perspective and seeing like, okay, these are their numbers in this situation, more detail, more granular. But that's where you need the film, because you need to know, okay, what kind of runs are they using? What does it look like? Who or what is getting beat? Is it the concept? Is it an individual player? What is the root source of the problem? And again, this is the whole theme of what we're doing here with that self-scouting piece, because this is what teams are doing on their bye weeks. And this is what teams do in the offseason. At any point when they self-scout, they are looking at themselves and saying, okay, what are our tendencies? What do we do well? What do we do poorly? And anything and everything. And the things that they're doing quote unquote poorly, it's like, okay, what's the root cause of this problem? We're having some struggles in the red zone. We're 18th in red zone, touchdown percentage. What's the cause of that? We're starting to struggle in the run game a little bit. Look what we are in DVOA. Look what we are in EPA by running back attempts. What is the cause of that? Is it the concept? Is it the running backs? Is it the offensive line? That's where that film comes in, so you can be able to properly put together that picture. The marriage of advanced metrics and combined with film, that's what it really, breaks everything down for and puts the whole piece together.
Yeah, and so I want to wrap up the rushing portion, the rushing red zone portion, with just a look at just a simple stat like yards per attempt. And I'm just looking at this from everyone including the quarterback runs here. And you can see the yards per attempt. Hopefully you can see on your phone. Let me zoom it in a little bit.
I would say you should be good now with how you zoomed in.
Okay, and so yards per attempt, if we look at, let's go by season. So we look at 2020, they were 2.5 yards per attempt, including quarterback runs in the red zone in 2020. 2021, they actually went up 3.4 yards per attempt in the red zone. including quarterback runs. And then you can see this year 2.2 yards per attempt. So they have a considerable drop there in the red zone rushing, even with Josh Allen as a threat. And so again, we can whittle it down, take him out of that, and see how those yards per attempt plays look. And you can see 2.6 in 2020, 2.9 in 2021. And then, of course, 2022, 3.4. So that's telling you, okay, when Josh Allen is included in the run game, all those scrambles, designed or not, their average actually goes up when he's not necessarily included in these stats.
And real quick, that's a huge piece, because how many people, if you see the struggles in the red zone, how many people of everything that we talked about so far were probably like, well, you know what? They should probably run Josh Allen more. And it's actually like, no, it's the opposite. Teams are cluing in so much that when they are running him, it's making things worse.
So those are the type of conclusions and breadcrumbs you need to carry into the film is like, okay, well, what are they doing against the Bills rushing offense in the red zone? Not just against running backs, but against Josh Allen. What are the play calls? Is it just good defense, or are they just bad play calls? Like, there's so many questions that you should have now after just looking at some of the raw stats, and then more importantly, the advanced stats when it comes to the rushing game. And real quick, I want to dive into the red zone passing, because I know you uncovered some really nice numbers about Josh Allen in the red zone versus the rest of the field.
I really did. And it was kind of shocking to a degree. Real quick, I did want to pull up this comment from Paul because it made me laugh. He said, looks like the only option is the 98-yard touchdown play to Davis. That way we'll stay out of the red zone.
Well, I mean, and most of the touchdowns, we're going to see it. Most of the touchdowns in the red zone are awesome. I think there's like 10 passing. But again, they're getting those explosive plays from outside the red zone, like that 98-yard touchdown, to really help their offense get points on the board. So they may have times where they struggle in the red zone, but if you're getting some of those explosive plays outside of the red zone, I mean, you can't really complain, but it's stuff that you have to pinpoint to improve on later, because eventually teams are going to tighten up outside of the red zone.
Yes, and that's that huge piece, like that tightening up when you get outside of the red zone. It's okay, like, so that means we're going to be in the red zone more eventually. Like, how do we function when we're in there? And looking at some Josh Allen numbers. So Josh Allen is crushing it so far this year. And if you look at, I didn't see what you filtered down to, so I was looking at my notes. Did you grab, are these his red zone stats first?
These are red zone passing, and I'll go to EPA to start here.
Okay, cool. So we're in SIS. Erik has filtered down into total EPA for quarterbacks in just the red zone, and he's highlighting the filter there. And if you look, you see all these quarterbacks who have numbers, and you see the first 14, and you don't see Josh Allen.
Where is Joshy? Where is he? I can't find him. Hold on. Let's see.
Where is he? He is all the way down. Boom, at 25th. Josh Allen's EPA, so again, the expected points added when he's throwing the ball, is negative 3.55. Again, from this perspective, negative is bad. If you look at the quarterbacks that he's listed with, he's behind Skylar Thompson for the Dolphins. He's behind Davis Mills. He's behind Bailey Zappi. Also, which is a fun one, if you try to want to look at upcoming opponents, look at Aaron Rodgers in the red zone, negative 4.35, below Josh Allen. But any way you slice it, you're in a grouping of players, and this isn't just quarterbacks. This is anybody who's like made an attempt here, which is why you see DJ Dallas. You see 41 attempts for Josh Allen and a negative 3.55 EPA. That's not good in the red zone. What's crazier with it is when you juxtapose that with his EPA outside of the red zone, which is
hold on. We just got reset here. Hold on one second. Let me bring that up.
No worries.
Yeah, so I mean, you said he was 25th in the red zone in passing, but outside of the red zone, he's a lot better. Wouldn't you say it?
A little bit. So you had those red zone numbers, and he was negative 3.55 EPA, which is again 25th out of the 44 qualifiers, I should say there. And what Erik's going to do, he's going to filter down now, and he's going to put Josh Allen's numbers from, I think you're still in red zone.
Yeah.
So he's filtering it within the red zone earlier. Now he's just going to put it as any. So he's putting any to any, and that's going to show Josh Allen's total EPA. And this is where that juxtaposition really comes through. So this is Josh Allen's EPA on the year, every situation, everything. There's no filters. This is just his total EPA as a thrower.
Yep.
54.79, most in the NFL. Second is Patrick Mahomes at 43.57. Third is Tua at 30. The big thing to take away, that's a huge jump from Mahomes to Allen. That's over like a 14-point EPA jump. But then look at the jump with everyone else. Tua is third at 30. He's almost 25 full points ahead in EPA versus the quarterback who's in third, let alone Geno Smith in fourth at 16.94. That EPA jump is huge. So you take the numbers from Josh Allen, somebody who is on track for an MVP season, who is the focal point of this Buffalo Bills offense, and you look at his EPA on the year, he's crushing it. But then the EPA in the red zone is negative, and it puts him in middle of the pack. If anything, kind of middle of the pack, but lower in the pack when it comes to EPA amongst the quarterbacks. And I think, again, that ties in, Eric, with what we're looking at holistically and is symptomatic of, the struggles and the inefficiencies that we're seeing in the red zone, even for someone like Josh Allen, who I think most Bills fans and most NFL pundits would agree is having an MVP type year, but not even, he is exempt from the struggles that this offense has had in the red zone.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, when we looked at even the advanced stats and DVOA red zone stuff through Football Outsiders, they were ranked 9th overall, and you're thinking top 10, that's great. But as you're going to see when I sort through some of the film itself, you're going to see that there's a lot of opportunities that they missed. And whether it's play calling, batted passes, dropped passes, which is a big one. There are different, obviously, elements or factors to why those plays didn't work. But you can see that, hey, even with 9th overall in offensive DVOA in the red zone passing, there's still opportunities for them to improve in that area on top of the rushing. So that was a really cool stat to contrast the Josh Allen's EPA outside of the red zone and then adding in the red zone there. That was really cool stuff. And so, okay, you got a bunch of these stats. You have a bunch of questions or things to look for when you get to the film. And sometimes, most of the time when the film comes out, we're watching the film before the stats even come out. So a lot of times we have to kind of write down in our notes, okay, let's test this theory. Let's look at this, keep an eye on this as the film goes on and as the stats come out. So a lot of times we're dealing with the film first over these advanced stats, because these advanced stats usually for DVOA stuff, that it doesn't usually come out to the next day or morning time for Football Outsiders. Yeah. And then SIS, sometimes it's end of the week. Sometimes it's a little later than we like. And, you have us cussing behind the scenes to try to find some theories to test and stuff like that. So a lot of times we're basing in film, and that's the way teams, when they're self-scouting, that's the way teams do it too, because as you can see to the bottom, you can see some of the charting done. So down, distance, yards gained, the name of the play, what play it was, pass, run, results, all those type of things are available to coaches. And you can even see some columns are actually blank off to the right because we didn't fill them in. We didn't need them for this session, but teams have people come in and chart and do all of this so that they can run the stats that SIS are running. So they kind of do it themselves, right? It's in-house stuff. We can't do that. We don't have all these plays charted from the year.
We are the in-house.
Yeah. So we're bridging the gap here, but teams will go to the film and they'll look at, okay, they have however many plays they've run the first 6 weeks. And then they start to run some analysis, and they can do that through reports, or they can just do that through just sorting some of the columns. So one of the things I want to start off with is sorting the plays. So all of the plays, I went in and I charted and cut up all of the red zone plays for the Bills. I think it was 71 plays, which included some victory formation stuff, some penalties. So most of it's in there, and just charted basic stuff, down, distance, not even like what coverages they saw, but basic stuff so that we can use. So we're going to look initially at the results column and analyze all plays that, let's start with touchdowns, the results. Okay, so we want to look at touchdowns. So this is going to include all rushing and passing touchdowns. And hopefully, let me zoom in a little bit. Hopefully you guys can see some of these plays. Again, just to give you an idea how you can start analyzing with the film in programs like Huddle, because like Huddle is an incredible tool that we use every week in the film room, Anthony. And honestly, if you have the roster, like the Bills roster or whatever, and you want to send this info, this film to Huddle, you can pay them to chart and break it all down, but that's well above what I want to pay, first of all. But more importantly, the turnaround time. I might as well do it myself. I'll get it done quicker instead of like a 24 to 48 hour turnaround. But as you can see, so here are the touchdowns, pass and rushes in the red zone. And then you can kind of, again, you can analyze like, okay, let's sort by play. Are there any concepts that are coming up several times, which, you know, they do see a couple slot plays, slot option type plays, RPOs. Let's start there because RPOs have always been a big thing in the Bills offense over the last couple of years. Right, Anthony?
Yeah, it was actually, you know, we talked about it last year. Initially, in the early portion of the year, they were one of the top teams in the league in RPO usage in the red zone, and we thought it was actually contributing to some of the struggles that they were having in the red zone. But this year, it's been largely successful. Real quick, Eric, before you dive into this play, I wanted to grab something just to give some insight to some people. So Paul says, you guys must spend hours looking at stats and then studying film to get a YouTube video out. It's impressive. Eric, I think people sometimes don't realize. So let's talk about this, right? Because usually like if we're just looking at film, usually the all 22 for offense and defense, depending on game script and how many plays are in, usually it's anywhere from like 30 to 35 minutes in length.
Right.
For you, how long does it take you to get through one side of the ball? We'll just make, so we're looking at offense here. So how long does it take you on average to get through just the all 22 from the Bills offense for any given week on average?
Right, like you said, so each side of the ball is sent, you know, and even special teams are sent. So you get 3 phases, all right? And each of them are 30 to 40 minutes each. So for one side to completely analyze and not just pull highlights, right? To completely analyze every position on the offense, along with what's playing on the defense and how the defense is matching personnel-wise and go through all that stuff. I'd say it takes me at least 3 hours. It takes me
just the film. That's just the film.
That's just a film. That's not me necessarily cutting the plays I want to bring into the film room. So that is, or posting it on social media. You see all of us post things on social media. So just to get through, if you're actually sitting down, you're trying to, you know, kind of chart mentally. Again, we don't go through and necessarily chart like this on the screen. Mentally chart these things and break down these things and bring up some of the tendencies and opportunities to get better and things they didn't do well and analyze it completely. It's at least 3 hours for one side of the ball.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, on a good week for me, and when I say good week, maybe just because I don't know, like one side of the ball, you know, the Bills blew out somebody, and so like the last 10 minutes of film for the offense is just kind of, you know, the backups running the same play or just kneeling down and just taking random things. On a good week when everything is perfect, maybe it's 2.5 hours for me on a good week. But yeah, on average, I would say around 3 hours, and then you are. Because again, to put it in perspective for everyone, and you hit on a ton of like the buzzwords, we're not just looking for highlights. And we're not just, oh yeah, I want to grab the all 22 of that touchdown from Josh Allen because that's sick. And a bunch of people are going to look at it and it'll get likes and retweets and all that crap, which is still good. But we're watching the film, okay, on this one play, because think about it, if it's a run play, okay, did it have a pass tag attached to it? Was it an RPO? Was it a regular run? Was it a gap run? Was it a zone run? Okay, it was a zone run. Was it outside zone? Was it mid zone? Was it inside zone? Oh, it was gap. Cool. Was it pin and pull? Was it counter? Was it power? Is it a duo run, which is like power without a puller? What was the personnel grouping for the Bills? What was the personnel grouping used by the defense? Okay, this run worked out. Okay, cool. Let me look at what Josh Allen did and see, you know, what his landing spot was for the handoff. Okay, what steps did the running back use? What was the offensive line doing? Each individual offensive lineman. What was the defensive line doing? The receivers, linebackers, everything. You're looking at a holistic perspective to be able to put everything together, which is why when someone goes to Erik or myself and is like, oh, hey, like, what do you think about like this type of concept or this idea for the Bills? We immediately can go like, well, we study the hell out of every single thing that happens on every single play. And it's why we're able to speak to the things that we speak to. And again, this isn't like unique to us. This is what's happening in the pros or in college. Like this is what they do. You have to look at everything holistically. Film it's not a joke, like, you know, grinding the film. It's a grind. Like, and again, that's just to put together so we know everything and can put together a holistic view of the previous game. That doesn't include going to look at the advanced metrics.
Or the production side of things to make
production, stats, all putting the film together, chopping it up. Yeah, it's so I wanted to pull that question.
No, that was a good point. I like that. That was good stuff, Paul. Appreciate it.
Oh, and then Steven also came through and said, yeah, they work their asses off. It's why their content is so good. We appreciate you, Steven. Yeah, that's another little, again, awesome. The whole idea of this uncovered, you know, series, giving a little peek behind the curtain. I think that's something that we don't really talk about a lot. Like, how long does it take us to really go through and chart and do everything?
And we only talk about it when we're talking third-party grading, and that's why we don't do it. That's why we don't do it, because in order for the turnaround to break down, an entire game just on one side of the ball takes that long.
Yep.
And to properly evaluate them accurately, each position, to scale it up to the whole, like that kind of turnaround takes, in my opinion, would take weeks. And so that's why we don't necessarily we don't use a lot of PFF grades, and any third party grader, like by all means, that's cool. Like if that's what you want to do, you want to push that, I don't want to see it all the time being talked about as accurate, because there's just no way it can be accurate when you talk about the turnaround time from the game on Sunday till Monday morning when grades become available. Like it's too far fetched for me. And that's why early on, when I first started in 2015, I would use it because it was when like film started to become a thing. It wasn't quite there yet, but PFF was a big thing. I mean, I remember when PFF came out, I was paying $2,000 for the year for PFF premium. And it was crazy. It was not, something that the average fan could really afford. Now it's like, I think $100 for the year and sometimes even cheaper than that. But, it's definitely become scaled. And so when you become scaled and when you're trying to push different types of content, you're going to lose accuracy. So when it comes to grading, that's why we don't really use it all that often. Some of our guys do, and that's okay. You can. But personally, I haven't since like 2015 when I started the company. But with that said,
you can't cast that type of net and that type of in order to get like a 12-hour next day turnaround time, you would need like a literal army of people analyzing everything and then being able to work together and combine. And even that, you're still dealing with individual variability. It's just too much.
Right. So back to the film. Great points and questions, guys. So red zone, we're looking at the red zone plays. I have it sorted by the results. So by touchdown, and you can see all the touchdowns in the result column. But one of the things that we've talked about last year, it's so funny. And this week, one of my memories that popped up on Twitter was on the 21st of October last year. I was studying the red zone stuff. Yeah, I was like, wow, this is wild. It's like deja vu, because I literally studied the red zone stuff for some content last year, and a lot of things have come up. But this year, it's a slightly different than last year. Last year, as you said, it was more of like, hey, instead of running RPOs and giving the defense, letting them dictate the handoff or not handoff by Josh Allen, like just run it. And this year it's a little different, but I want to start with RPOs because it's always going to be their bread and butter. It's still a huge portion of their base offense. And in the red zone, same thing. So if we look at some of the SIS numbers on RPOs in the red zone, Bills right now, tendency-wise, are 10th overall in the red zone on RPOs. And as opposed to last year in the red zone, they were 4th, Anthony. So they're kind of scaling it back a little bit, which is, is not bad. It's kind of what we were talking about last year. But when they are running those RPOs, aside from these glance routes to Diggs, they're not working as well. And we'll get into some of that, but let's talk about the plays that worked, because a couple of these glance routes to Diggs worked. The first one being the Steelers game.
Yeah, and what's funny too is this one came right after like a 15 or 17-yard gain from Devin Singletary. So the defense is clued in to like the run starting to click a little bit for the Buffalo Bills. And you're going to see it on this play. Like you have the 3 second-level defenders there at the 10-yard line. Here. They bite so hard on the run action for this RPO. You watch and they just vacate. Yep. Boom. Highlight. And then as you go forward, they're nowhere near in the middle. And it's just wide open. Like that's candy from a baby being taken right there. Look at how wide open of the space there is for Diggs between Minka and the corner there on the outside. And this was a nice, easy, successful play for Josh Allen. But again, tied into, not that this is, all focused on the run, but this RPO action can work even if you're not great with the run. But because the Bills had tied it into coming right off a successful run play, this is easy pitch and catch for Allen and Diggs. And the second level of the defense just gets sucked up. And this is a nice, successful, play for them down here to get an easy score.
Yeah, I mean, they've run this several times a year and have had success. And as you said, as they get the running game going with the running backs in the red zone, these might even become even more a bigger part of their offense. Because it's something, again, they've gotten 2 to 3 touchdowns every year. Sometimes it's Diggs, sometimes it's Gabriel Davis. We've seen it with Knox, I think one time against the Patriots. Like we've seen these type of plays all the time, and they'll run it differently. So this one was more of like an insert block. You see the tight end right here showing right inside the offensive line there, kind of running like an insert, an ISO. And so that's going to bring not just this guy down, but this guy to fill that gap, because you can see this is his gap. This is going to be his gap. So it naturally pulls the conflict defender inside because of how the tight end folded on that play. But you can see it on this play. It's a 2nd and 10 situation here. Bills are already up versus the Titans. And this is one, a glance route that the Bills have scored several times against the Titans over the years. Like, this is one of their go-to RPOs to the top of the screen. Again, there's a play action fake here, and here's your read, the conflict defender, and then you see Diggs again just break to the post there on that glance route. Just easy pitch and catch for the Bills offense. And in this game, as you guys may remember, they were running like a lot of these RPOs, but more times than not, we were running just Diggs out to the flats.
Yeah,
this time, those free access RPOs. So this time you're going to see him read Amani Hooker, number 37 right there. He comes down, and that lane just wide open for Diggs. It's easy stuff, especially when corners are playing off coverage versus Diggs.
When RPOs are really working, it's an absolute bitch for the defense because, again, the whole nature of an RPO is to make the defense wrong no matter what they do. Okay, cool. You're going to sit and play coverage. We're going to hand the ball off and run it. Okay, cool. You're going to respect the run. We're going to replace you and throw it where there's the opening and vacation. Like, it's designed to make the defense wrong no matter what they do. And that's what's exciting. Like, if the Bills start to get more success in the run game, it's going to make these type of looks even more prevalent because the defense has to make a conscientious decision of, okay, do we want to get gouged in the run a little bit because the run is a real thing, or do we have to stop it first and then we're going to get beat over the top for these plays? It just makes everything a little looser on defense, a little easier for Josh Allen. And when you've got that level of ease for this offense, like, Allen is really good at running these RPOs, especially when he has more space, and he and Diggs have such great chemistry with what they're able to see. And then again, you tied it into what Tennessee was doing this game, playing in those off coverages. Like, you're just asking to get beat on these type of routes, especially with younger corners like Tennessee was. And the Bills ID'd that. They recognized it. And as the game went on, they literally just kept spamming these RPO looks, whether it was free access or the glance, and they just kept hitting it because they knew it was a vulnerability for Tennessee and they couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah, and that's what's fun about charting and having this stuff in Huddle, because you can analyze it so many different ways, so many different filters. Like, a lot of people think just red zone, from the 20 to the 1 yard line. But there are different areas of the red zone. Some people call inside the 10-yard line, inside the 5-yard line, more of that low red zone. And so you run different plays, right? You run different plays in those areas. And so you can obviously analyze that based on distance in here. You can go ahead and analyze and only filter, hey, from the 1 to the 10-yard line, that low red zone, or from the 5 to the 1. So there are different things that are going to come up, different types of play concepts that are going to come up inside the 5-yard line, whether it's run or pass, versus the 17-yard line, the 19-yard line, or the fringe there. And so one of the things that I noticed, not from a distance standpoint, but when I sorted and went through these plays and really kind of labeled concepts, especially pass concepts, again, we're kind of going through the good stuff, the things that are working, the tendencies that are showing up, whether they're good or bad. And one of the things that really came up was smash concepts, Anthony. And so when I sorted through these, you're going to see a lot of these called smash. You're going to see smash, level smash. So a lot of different smash concepts. And a smash concept, to boil it down, to generalize it, is a high-low concept. And it's usually a 2-man route combination. It can be a 3-man, but it's a 2-man or 3-man route combination that, attacks a defender and puts them in a bind. Do I want to cover the guy low or the cover guy high? One of the most common ones is a hitch with a corner behind it. So that corner is going to be in conflict on what guy he is going to cover. And so teams use this. The Bills especially use this. Why, Anthony? Because smash concepts are good versus what coverage?
Zone coverage, Eric.
Yeah.
Especially, it's particularly those cover 2 coverages where you take that. And for those who don't know, just to be safe, in cover 2, we're talking that corner on the outside has the flat. He's in that type of cloud coverage. And then you have a safety over the top. That's that, the famous, the honey hole shot type of throw a little bit, where it's
we're going to see a bunch of them.
Where you see that over the top safety and that cloud corner underneath. So exactly like Eric has it drawn up here. These are, again, to generalize it, these are both basically smash concepts. So not your traditional hitches from the outside receivers, but the concept is still the same because it leads to a high-low where Josh Allen is reading what's happening underneath and then either going underneath or hitting that corner action from the inside receiver.
Yeah, and this is a play. We're gonna go through the smash series because it's one of their number one concepts. I'll say it's their number one concept in the red zone because and not just the red zone, anywhere, because they see so many of those too high coverages. On this play, I want to just highlight, because one of the other tendencies that show up not just in the red zone but outside of the red zone are like switch releases. So you're going to see Knox come across a formation and kind of switch release with Diggs at the bottom. But as Anthony said, it's still a smash concept, still a high-low of the corner. But the Bills love to do this versus man, zone, 1, 2 high. They love doing this because, it really puts those defenders, whether they're man or zone, in a pickle, because if it's man coverage, they got to work through traffic. If it's zone coverage, they have to process and space it properly on the fly as a ball snapped, as you see Knox kind of release there. So on this play, it's nothing really happens. You have mirrored smash concepts, different concepts, but they're still high lows. And Josh just tries checking it down, which is a smart move with Singletary underneath, but it's batted down. So not a bad decision, just batted down. So on this play against the Ravens, the Bills run a smash concept, but this is called a smash divide or a divide smash. And this was a drop by Stephon Diggs. So the Bills have a 3-by-1 to the field. Gabriel Davis isolated to the top of the screen. Devin Singletary running motion to the bottom of the screen, so it becomes 4 eligibles to the bottom of the screen. So 4 guys that the defense, whether they're man or zone, have to account for. Now watch what that little motion does, again, in the red zone. 14-yard line here. So that's going to bring this guy out, and then that opens up the smash divide. That opens up the post here. Again, you got a corner here, and then you just got a little in-breaking or under route by Knox. So this is an amazing concept versus those 2 high looks. The Bills scored several times last year on this type of divide route, but more importantly, at the end of the game, Gabriel Davis, that one over the middle, that was a smash divide concept. It's something that the Bills use against the Chiefs a lot. We're going to see it. But this one, obviously, it was there, like the motion by Singletary. It opened up the middle of the field, but Diggs dropped it on this play, Ant.
Yeah, I was cursing at my TV on this one. I was pretty disappointed. The Bills are down 20-3 here. They end up scoring after, so it's okay. But yeah, the concept is fantastic. And this is, again, you're playing into that scouting piece of your opponent. Like, you're anticipating what type of coverage you are going to be seeing in the red zone based on your offense, and also based on what defenses want to do. Like, to whittle it down, when you're in the red zone, defenses usually go more zone coverage. They usually go more 2 high looks. And then within those 2 high looks, usually you get more cover 2, just because it allows you to really layer your defense and be able to have more answers as you kind of flood all the zones and passing windows. But exactly like you said, Eric, you get that smash concept traditionally to the right, and then you get that post route from Diggs in the middle, and it just works out exactly how you draw it up. But this is pointing to, also, if you're looking at the numbers, and if you're just looking at it from an advanced metric perspective, you're like, well, the Bills are unsuccessful in the red zone on this play. And they are, but it's just due, unfortunately, to one individual error from Stephon Diggs. The concept is there. The timing of the play call is there. Josh Allen's read is there. The ball is there. Everything worked except for the finished product being the catch from Stephon Diggs. This is where, again, we start to add in that context piece to be able to put together that holistic analysis, because at the end of the day, this play is a loss because it didn't lead to, anything positive, and it was a drop, but everything worked except for the play at the catch point, concept, design, timing, throw. This is, again, really putting a holistic perspective on what we think of the Bills in the red zone.
Yeah, and these smash divide concepts are really good at not just targeting the corner on the high-low right here, but it really puts, the safety in a bind too. So if the corner does a good job of covering the under and he's got help right here, that's taken away. The high-low is not necessarily going to work, but now you're moving to the 3rd level, and it puts the safety in conflict because, you have that guy going to the post, that guy going to the corner, and you can kind of see the safety kind of get caught going to just drifting to the corner. And that safety on the backside is just too far away because he's got to worry about Gabriel Davis. Obviously, he doesn't go deep here, but he very well could. So he's got to hold on his landmark. So that's why these smash divide concepts are just amazing plays to call with the Bills. And they ran it a good amount last year, but it seems like Dorsey is running them even more. And you're going to see it here, but this is a different personnel grouping. So you see the smash divide, you see the post in the corner to the top of the screen, the under out by the number 1. But Gilliam's running the post here. You have the corner by Knox, so you have a slightly different look there. It's a 3-by-1 with Cook to the weak side of the formation to the bottom. Gabriel Davis running a deep corner. So this again, to the bottom of the screen, to the weak side, aside from the top, is another smash type concept. I know Cook runs the option route here, but that option route could go different ways too. This could easily have been this, depending on the leverage of the linebacker that comes out to meet him. But you're going to see Cook runs the option route over the middle, nice little gap, quick pass to Cook right there. Smash divide, different personnel in the play. Cook, Gilliam running, some of the routes there. Good stuff. So let's flash back to the Chiefs game. In this one, they call this one double China 7. All right. And so top of the screen, 3-man route combination. So this is this is one of those smash concepts, but you have 3 men in the route here. 2 under routes by the 1 and 2. And then you have Diggs going to the corner. So to the bottom, similar thing, option route by the running back, and then a corner route by Singletary. So that also is in many ways a smash concept as well. But watch what happens to the top of the screen, because this is where McKenzie drops it. Watch how they defend Diggs here. So you're going to see them communicating on the defensive side of the ball. And then when the ball is snapped, watch how they screw up the banjo coverage. So they are supposed to switch. So as McKenzie comes in the middle, this guy should have been banjoing and picking up McKenzie, but he doesn't on this play. And this opens up the middle of the field with the Chiefs blitzing. Josh buys enough time, you'll see it from the end zone angle, to get it to McKenzie, but unfortunately he trips and drops the ball.
Yeah, he gets snagged by the turf monster, and it pulls him down on this one, on this 4th and 3. But again, you're sitting there and you're charting this, and it's like, oh, from a percentage standpoint, right? So even this, like, let's tie it back to the very first thing you pulled up in this episode, the GSIS stats. Bills are tied for 18th in red zone touchdown percentage. Oh, they're failing in the red zone. Here's a play. This leads to being like 0 for whatever in the red. So you're just taking it in a vacuum. So this is one series, 0 for 1 in the red zone. This really should have been a 1 for 1. This should have been a touchdown. The play concept worked, the scheme, the design, it just was a drop at the end. Also, just for people, I want to add a little, context. The double China 7 name for this concept. The 7 is in reference to that corner route that is being the corner route that's being run by Stephon Diggs, and then the double China is in reference to what Gabe Davis is doing and to what Isaiah McKenzie is doing. Gabe Davis is the number 1 receiver, McKenzie as the 2. Again, this was well executed, well read by Josh. It just doesn't get finished at the catch point, and this is all of these pieces of really analyzing, okay, why are we seeing the Bills at tied for 18th in red zone percentage? Is it a problem with execution? Is it a problem with play calls? Is it a problem with play design? Is it the timing of these calls? Is it what the defense is doing? We've now shown 2 back-to-back plays. Well, ideas, with that Diggs drop and the McKenzie drop built within that smash concept and smash world of it just really coming down to, unfortunately, one individual player not executing at the end. But that's where we're starting to really formulate what's the root cause of these problems. What are the potential solutions? When the problem isn't at the scheme or concept level, it's much more encouraging because it's easier.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Yes, it's easier to just fix Timmy has to catch the friggin' ball. That's much easier than being like, this whole concept needs to be reworked. Real quick, Eric, we did get a question from Chris, who we love. Chris says, how do you guys grade Dorsey through the first 6 games? This is something you and I, we've talked about in the film room. We've talked about it offline, just in a variety of ways, with the jury still being out. And we still do have, some things that we're concerned about. But overall, a decently successful start to the year with some things that we would like to see tweaked and potentially worked on as he moves forward.
Yeah, I think he's graded pretty well. I won't put a number or grade on it, but I do think he's, considering this is his first time calling plays on any level
ever.
That's really good. I mean, and of course he's got the ultimate eraser in Josh Allen, but as you can see in a lot of these plays, they're not exotic. They're very calculated. They're very straightforward. Now there are some routes that, give some leeway and leverage to the receiver to kind of break routes and all that stuff. And that'll come down to rapport with Josh Allen and the receivers. But as you can see, some of these plays, like a couple drop touchdowns, that is going to increase their red zone percentage. As Anthony said, that's context left out that really would help them, whether it's raw stats or, analytically for advanced stats. But overall, I think he's done some really cool things. We're going to point out some more things on top of Smash, on top of the switch releases, some cool things. But I will say, it's been simple and very effective. But I wonder long-term, as I said in the film room last week, I wonder long-term when teams get more film and they are able to shut down some of those simple concepts and they have the talent to match up in those crunch times, I wonder how he will respond, how the offense will respond, because I think he's being more efficient and he's drawing up plays to be more efficient, but yet they're getting some of those explosives still. So it's great. It's a good balance when compared Dorsey to Daboll's, aggressiveness and play style. But long term, we're only 6 games in. I want to see, as teams get more film on him, how he is able to react and how the offense kind of, counters or transitions, because it's going to happen. This is the NFL.
Yeah, I'm in a very similar boat. I like the dials that he's turned week to week based on opponent, whether it's, formational alignments, whether it's putting Stephon Diggs in the slot, whether it's using more 21 or 12 personnel, like all these different things. I like the buttons that he's pressing and the times that he's pressing them. But exactly, Erik, to your point, we got to see what that looks like going forward, as all of those buttons that he's pressing and all of those dials that he's turning, teams are going to be able to see him press those buttons and turn those dials. How does he counter then, knowing how people are going to anticipate his game plans coming into games? That's really what it is, right? When everybody has the entire book on you and knows all the possible things that you can do, what do you call and when do you call it in order to stay one step ahead and still execute?
And it's a great question and segue from Chris there, because you're going to see on this play, I have it titled level, smash, switch, follow. So let's walk through that. Again, levels, you're having several levels coming across the middle from the bottom of the screen. You got your smash concept because it is a high-low, but it's a high-low outside kind of targeting the corner. But I like this. I talked about switch releases and stacking receivers in a couple of our video breakdowns and some of our film rooms, but to the bottom. So if the Ravens were in man coverage here, you're going to see these receivers kind of switch. That's like an old air raid type concept, run and shoot concept. It's something the Bills have done a lot of, but we're seeing it even more so this year. And you see McKenzie kind of switch release with Gabriel Davis. And that's great because you can see how that corner inside has to work through that coverage. And it almost automatically lifts the coverage off of McKenzie there. But I also like it because the route he's running, as I drew up, it becomes a good zone beater too. So if they were in zone coverage, you're just moving. It's just going to be kind of unfold differently on the defensive side of the ball. And you still have a high-low working to the middle of the field, which you can see is open. But Josh is targeting to the top of the screen here. And another little nuance, and I talked about having, options for receivers. Watch this route by Diggs. He's running that under route, so it looks very similar to that high-low in-breaking route with a corner behind it by Knox. But based on the leverage of that defender, he can snap it back out to the sideline. But Josh is already dialed in here, and he's throwing it to Dawson Knox with pressure in his face. Very similar route to the Chiefs game, Anthony, and you can see Josh nail that throw before he's hit.
Yeah, it's really good job from Josh Allen to hang in the pocket and deliver this on time and with good ball placement to Dawson Knox. I also love the way Knox right here, bang, the way he snaps that route off, like he gets into his man and starts to lean on him a little bit, uses that size, and then bang, snaps it right off. There's no extension from the inside arm to draw OPI. It's just him using leverage and his athleticism and quickness to snap it off. Josh makes the good read, recognizes the coverage, hangs in there, delivers his ball on time. This angle really kind of, puts it in perspective. Is like he feels Queen and he sees him
coming.
And this is something that Patrick Queen, like he's had struggles in coverage at times. He's a monster coming forward, whether it's, against the run or in these, pass blitz scenarios. So this is a good job from him. He delays, he splits Singletary and Morse. Yeah, he really does. Like, and I'm thinking that's what that is. Like, he reads that Singletary is coming in and is like, screw it, I'm going. Bang, pinballs, gets right through. But Josh reads it because, again, he knows that concept he has on the backside, recognizes the coverage, and you see him peek in the middle, and then he peeks to the right, and you see him read what's going on. He gives one quick last little glance to his right, and then is like, nah, okay, cool, I know what I got on the backside. And then right as he gets hit, it's a really good play from Josh Allen and a good route from Dawson Knox, who we haven't talked a lot about this year. He's been banged up, but, when he's been able to flash a little bit, we're seeing that athleticism and that, him using his size in a more technical way.
Yeah, and I mean, this is an incomplete pass versus the Steelers. Bills in a 2x2 set, and you have that motion and that switch release. Like, these concepts are they're base concepts, and that means everyone needs to be able to run them. So this is Gilliam, or actually Morris coming across the formation, running that switch release, but it's still a high-low. He's breaking inside. You have Diggs to the corner. You got a corner and under route to the top of the screen. So simple concept. We've seen it a couple of times. Josh isn't able to fit it in the window here. That's an incomplete pass versus the Steelers. Here's a smash go This is one that was dropped by Davis. So again, red zone look, 2nd and 12 situation. In route or under route to the top, corner route by Morris. Bottom of screen looks like a slot option from Crowder. And Josh Allen sees these safeties back there, and he's like, you know what? I'm gonna target Gabriel Davis here because these guys are working almost like Kansas City. Watch the top of the screen. Watch that safety right there. Look at him working with that corner. As Diggs comes across the middle, you see him driving on that. So a very similar coverage in the red zone to Diggs, and that's what teams want to do. Diggs is the number 1 targeted wide receiver in the red zone for the Bills. He has 11 targets. The second guy, Anthony, which is crazy and something we're going to talk about later, is Devin Singletary. Devin Singletary has 7 targets in the red zone, which is second most on the team. Last year, he had 7 as well over the course of the entire regular season, and that was 6th on the team. So, again, that's not something I want to see continuing going on unless that's Cook and they're working backside option route concepts. Yes. But they need to get others involved, including Knox, including Gabriel Davis. But on this play, he gets the one-on-one right here with Gabriel Davis. And usually Gabriel Davis brings us down as he turns his back there. But that defender made a good play on this one.
Yes. I was going to say, this is you want to see Gabriel Davis make this catch and bring it in and secure it. But watch the punch right through the hands, right on the ball. That's literally like textbook. That's how you practice it. That's how it's drawn up. That's what you want to see if you're a defensive coordinator or a defensive backs coach. This is beautiful. He's eyeballing it the whole way. This wasn't an accident. That corner watches the ball, watches Davis catch it, knows that he's beat, and his only chance is to punch it out. So absolutely great play from the corner. And again, simplistic read from Josh. He sees what the safeties are doing. He has trust and faith in Gabriel Davis. He's going to take that one-on-one shot down low. And I love how you tied it in with what the Dolphins did up top against Diggs. It's very similar to what the Chiefs did on that Dawson Knox touchdown last week in Kansas City.
Yeah. No, definitely, man. And it's something that we're going to talk about. Same game here. We have a smash with a switch at curl route. So let's get this play diagrammed up. So again, top of the screen, you have kind of that switch release. They're running more of a curls concept up there. But then you have the smash concept to the bottom between Gilliam and Dawson Knox. And watch as the Dolphins send that cat blitz, that corner blitz right here. It's an easy read right here. And this is what I like about this. This safety is usually replacing over the top, but this guy, the hook to curl defender, has to respect the depth vertically by Knox. So Josh, it's an easy read. Smash concept, high-low, get it to Gilliam and get positive yards on that play. Simple plays. And these are, again, smash concepts, one of the oldest plays in the book, and the Bills are just running it, and they're running it at a pretty good clip. So here is the smash curl wheel against the Chiefs. So it's disguised really well. You have one-on-ones to the bottom of the screen. This safety is going to come down on Knox, and this is probably why the Bills ran it later in the game. But watch Diggs to the top. You get that switch release, which is great versus man coverage, but Josh is working that too high smash concept to the bottom. He misses Diggs to the top. But again, he stays ahead of chains. He just dumps it down to Singletary on that play, and they're able to get 4 yards. So you can see early in the game, let's see the timestamp on this one. This was 11:03 of the first quarter when they ran that play. And again, Josh didn't go to Knox, but getting one-on-one with Knox on a safety, they want to take advantage of in the red zone, Anthony. And obviously they did later on this play from the fourth quarter. Time's running, 1:37 on the clock, and it's running. It's a 2nd and 12 situation. Different formation, different personnel. But when you look at some of the concepts, they're very similar. So you get motion from McKenzie behind Davis. You have that muddied look, that muddied release because of the stack formation and kind of switch release. But to the bottom, they got the one-on-one look with Knox and the safety. And it came in an odd way because watch the safety to the bottom of the screen. He comes down and basically is doubling Diggs, but it's kind of a bad move from him to show this way because Diggs is just running a little diagonal route to the flats. So it's that smash concept, but it also kind of jammed up Dawson Knox here because normally when you're running that corner route, that defender should be inside and you want Knox running away from that. But that route is choked off and closed off by that defender. And Josh, in a video Chris did earlier this morning, put out, he was on the Kyle Brandt podcast and he talked about, he's pointing to Knox like, hey, go to the middle of the field because the middle of the field's wide open. But Knox's back was already to Josh. And as he's turning, he's like already running to the corner. So Josh is like, you know what? Screw it. I'll throw it to a point. Let Dawson Knox go get it. But again, a smash concept versus the Chiefs. one of their main concepts from this year. This one ended in a touchdown. Just great work between Allen and Knox here. But Dorsey, again, he loves these concepts in the red zone.
Yeah, and it's something, you're tying it into, I think, the play you saw before, like what type of game that the Chiefs are going to run on the back end when it comes to Stephon Diggs. So he goes to this look later. This is something that I think realistically you could sit and say he called this knowing, okay, we're going to run this look into the boundary.
Yep.
We ran it earlier in the game. They bracketed Diggs. That means Knox is going to be one-on-one. This is a good call. I've got my big athletic tight end in man coverage against one of the safeties for the Chiefs. And it also looks like a little bit here on this one. It looks like Bush and Reed, the two safeties there, Reed is 20, Bush is 26. It looks like they get confused a little bit. Like Reed almost looks like he's going for Diggs. Like if you watch where his head is, like almost like he's going to be the bracketing safety. And then he peeks back in. And again, it kind of jams Knox up a little bit, but puts himself out of position. Knox gets around. So I don't know if that's a miscommunication piece on the Chiefs end, but this is my favorite part. One, the throw from Allen. This throw is stupid good. Like the fact that he gets it over Bush.
And he said he recognized him. He recognized that he would be under the pass on this route and throw to Knox. Like that is mind-boggling, the amount of processing and time span it takes to do that in real time. It's just crazy, man. That's why quarterbacks are really the guys that are given a lot of the flowers, and more times than not when things go bad, they also get the brunt of that criticism. But this is just unreal processing.
The fact that he can in real time, because also think about it too, like most people, I think people are more tuned into time to throw numbers. And so you've got throws that are happening in like 2.5 to 3 seconds. So all within 2.5 to 3 seconds, Josh is dropping back. He's reading the rush that's coming in front of him, maneuvering how he has to. Then he's reading the coverage. Then he's recognizing what's going on underneath the man he wants to throw the ball to. And then he's physically executing.
Yeah. Shout out to Saffold here. Shout out to Saffold real quick. Sorry to interrupt you, but his ability to anchor on this play, it really just took the fight to Chris Jones on the end of this drive and just anchors down right there. And like you said, the processing and then to get the throw up over Jones, but also that secondary defender was remarkable.
Huge piece from Roger Saffold. Like this, to your point, like this is winning time for Chris Jones. Like this is what he gets paid for, like to on 2nd and 12 in a non-advantageous spot for the Bills offense when they need to score. Like this is where he's pinning his ears back and Saffold locks him up, anchors down. And then I love how Knox, you said it earlier, how he comes back to the ball. Watch how he comes through Reed a little bit and comes through back to this ball. It's slight, but he attacks it. He doesn't wait for it to come to him. He works back to the football a little bit through Reed and makes this play. But again, this is everything. This is also too, like, to tie it all in with what we've been doing in this episode, tie it back into the Diggs drop before and the McKenzie drop, or McKenzie falls down and it leads to the drop. These are all these things that have to work right because you're in this condensed part of the field. Yeah. It's tying in things from earlier and putting the breadcrumbs together earlier in the game, right? With Dorsey being like, we ran this concept earlier. This is what the Chiefs did. We think if we do it in the same type of scenario, which again, it's very close, red zone formation into the boundary concept, smash concept into the boundary. You're playing off of that. You need the individual execution. Josh needs to recognize it. Knox needs to recognize it. All these pieces, like there's so many moving parts that really affect the outcome of any one individual play. And this is why we study the metrics combined with the film, so we can properly chart and analyze and be able to put it together in order to provide you folks with that content. So when one of you asks us, hey, what's going on with the Bills red zone? We're not just like, well, they're 18th, so they're not good. Like we can properly analyze and put it together.
Yeah, no, totally, man. And so that was the extent of our Smash series there. So it's obviously a concept the Bills like to run because they see so much cover 2, so much cover 6 and cover 4 quarters coverage. And so you're going to see, those concepts a lot. You're going to see a lot of those switch releases, which I really like because they are good man beaters off the snap, off the release, kind of create natural leverage for a receiver when it's man coverage. But eventually the routes can uncover into just a simple high-low zone coverage beater. And you saw that on that McKenzie play and throw to Dawson Knox prior to the Chiefs touchdown there against the Ravens. So that's some pretty cool details to Ken Dorsey's offense. He loves using that motion a lot and getting easy looks for Josh Allen and the receivers. So now I want to kind of talk about some things that were some opportunities for the Bills offense when it comes to run or pass. But before that, Ant, why don't you let everyone know, the people in here obviously are insiders, but for people that are watching this later, what they need to do to get these type of clinics from us in the future, from us or even from Greg when it comes to salary cap and contract and roster construction standpoints.
Yeah, so this is all tied to that thing that folks may have heard us mention it from time to time. I'm going to pull up a graphic for it because the graphic is fantastic.
Yes.
It's that cover one pass, and it says right up there in the top left, like, why subscribe? This is one, vacuumed instance of why you should subscribe to the cover one pass piece. We take things to the next level here at Cover One in just our general content and the way we operate, whether that's Twitter, whether it's our regular podcast, whether it's the articles on the website, anything and everything. But this uncovered series is available to our insiders who are our insiders because of that one pass club access. And this is that example of exclusive members only content, in-depth analysis, scheme, play, and player breakdowns. Also ties into the Slack channel that we love and so many of our One Pass subscribers love. We communicated this to, our insider email groups, but also to the Slack channel. And this comes from conversations that we have in that group and in that community. There's just a lot of tremendous content that we produce as a brand for free. And then also that next level piece that we take for these insiders to really add more rewarding content and aspects to the support that you folks have given us by paying that $57 a year in honor of AJ Epinesa. Just kidding, it's because of Super Bowl 57.
And Anthony said it perfectly. What we do, it's a grind. As you can see, we're kind of peeling the onion back, and you're seeing the layers of what it takes to create content for you guys at the depth that we do. And yes, we appreciate the likes, the shares, the subscriptions to the YouTube channel and sharing that with your friends. If that's all you can, that's fine. Like, we appreciate that. Leave a comment to help us trend and get a little more exposure when it comes to the YouTube algorithm. But really, we rely on these subscriptions to not only take care of our writers on the website, but also to have access. These programs and memberships aren't cheap. And, so we are able to afford these things to give you guys the in-depth content because of our insiders and our premium subscribers. And so we hope that we are doing a good enough job that you will support us, but we will take any type of sharing or, traffic and exposure that you guys can help us with. So if you're not an insider yet, you're watching this later, you're not an insider, we'd appreciate it if you joined up and got into the Slack channel and got into the DMs and hang out with us and talk football all day, because that's what happens in the Slack channel. So with that said, Ant, let's transition to some of the opportunities that the Bills have on the offensive side of the ball in the red zone. And so I talked about, earlier about where the ball is being distributed in the red zone. And that's 11 targets for Stephon Diggs in the red zone. He's got 4 touchdowns. Number 2 is Devin Singletary with 7 red zone targets. That's second on the team. He's got 1 touchdown versus the Dolphins. I mentioned earlier, Singletary has 7 touches. He had 7 receptions in the red zone all of last season, and that was 6th on the team. So they need to do something differently there. Knox only has 3 targets in the red zone. Davis only has 2. McKenzie is second in touchdowns. So he's got, I think 6 targets. So he's behind Singletary, but he's got 3 touchdowns in the red zone. Probably should have had 4.
I was literally going to say that. I didn't want to harp on it, but I was like, you should have had another.
Right. So that's where the ball is being distributed. And one of the things that I liked better from Daboll over the years was how he schemed the tight ends in the red zone, specifically Dawson Knox. But he was scheming up some plays in the red zone and the low red zone for like Lee Smith and Tyler Croft. And they were getting touchdowns in the low red zone from inside the 10, inside the 5, from a lot of those crossing routes. So they send 2 receivers going in one direction, then they send a backside receiver running the crossing route, and it would just confuse teams in the low red zone because they'd have to process all these crossers, where the banjo and switches should be coming from, and teams struggle to do that. And we're not seeing that from Dorsey as much. And I think that if they do send Knox in some of those situations a little more, I think we'll see some more touchdowns in that regard. But I want to show how Daboll used to run it, this concept, the cross concept, because as you can see, I have it pulled up all those plays in the red zone that were kind of their cross concepts. And it's several plays when you're looking at the grand scheme of things. And a couple of them you can see down and distance wise, third down, fourth down, third down. Like these are situations where they're calling it in money down situations, and they've only got one touchdown out of it, and a scramble. So there are opportunities for them to get better in this situation. But talk about, contrasting Dorsey's play calling in the red zone when it comes to some of these concepts versus Daboll's. Because again, I think Daboll's been better up to this point, but maybe, as someone said on social media, maybe Dorsey's kind of keeping it in his back pocket till when they really need it.
That's I think a definite potential. Maybe Dorsey's kind of playing some cards close to the vest a little bit. I also think you have to factor in, the health of Dawson Knox if we're talking about that tight end piece and that red zone piece. But I think, if we're comparing the two, I think it ties back to a point you made earlier about Ken Dorsey. What we've seen up to this point, and we don't mean this in a negative way, what we've seen from Ken Dorsey has been more simplified things. Like he's running, regular or known concepts, maybe even a little bit more vanilla. What we saw more from Brian Daboll, and you're highlighting these plays, I think he was better at using those designers, scheming things up in a more creative way that wasn't just your traditional, we're going to run smash here and we're going to run, levels here. He drew up things specifically, whether
some pretty creative plays, right?
Yeah.
Like creative plays meant to attack a certain defender versus like, hey, we're just going to run our offense and have Josh work through the progressions, right? Is that what you're getting at?
1,000%, especially when you're pairing it with, like, who are you talking about? Like the Tyler Crofts and the Lee Smiths, the guys that, no disrespect to them, aren't your traditional threats in the red zone that everybody's keying in on. So if you're running these schemed up looks for these guys that aren't your traditional threats, it adds another layer of, we just got type of piece to the defense. And I think that's where Daboll was. But again, I also don't think that's a huge knock on Dorsey. This is his first year as an offensive coordinator and play caller. What we're showing from Daboll comes after years and years of experience in different systems and knowing who he is and what he wants. So I think some of that is to be expected, and it's understandable why Daboll was more ahead with his designers and pinpoint attacks than Ken Dorsey was at this point.
Yeah, so I'll run real quick through this cross concept. So normally Daboll would send, again, two one way, one the other, and then whether the defense is in man or zone, they still have to account for these guys and process it. And you can see this guy jumps the lower route, and Diggs is wide open in the back of the end zone. Josh delivers there. You saw this several times. Again, like just scheming up plays for tight ends, for fullbacks. And here's another one from the backside. Here comes the backside tight end. Like, we're not seeing these type of plays from Dorsey yet, especially in the low red zone. But I hope that he is able to pull it out a little more, just because, like, I think that's Ryan Bates. And then this guy's wide open on the Knox on the back, the back line there. Remember Bates said it when we did the film room with him, like he's probably ran the most routes for an offensive lineman, but didn't get the ball there. These are the type of things that Daboll did that Dorsey isn't quite doing. And I'm going to show you that, what Dorsey is doing. Like, he's running this cross concept, but he's calling it and designing it a little differently. Again, maybe that's for a reason, or maybe they're saving it. But I want to show you guys what he's doing, because he's not sending out as many guys in a route, especially when we're talking that backside defender there. So here's the first play from the Dolphins game here. Let me get the play drawn up. So Knox is in line. Bills are in 21 personnel. Knox is in line right here. And you can see they have the cross concept, two guys crossing. They have a little return route from Gabriel Davis to the top of the screen, which is great. But then you can see everyone gets covered up rather easy. Look at the communication. This is easy. Like, Knox is taken away. Diggs has eyes all over him.
This is easy to pass off if you're a defense.
Easy. So easy to pass off. This guy's dropping out, and Josh ends up scrambling. And I think this is the one this isn't the one he just throws away. Yeah, this is the one he just throws away. So you see there's no backside defender. Gabriel Davis is running a different route into the boundary. He's not coming behind Dawson Knox, almost like what we call a follow concept. Because if you have a guy following another receiver running through a zone, it's going to open things up for that guy. So here's another, again, money down, 3rd and 2 situation. This is a scramble from Josh. But watch this play specifically, because you have the 2 crossing routes right here, right? You got a really nice motion built in with McKenzie. Again, kind of that man coverage beater. But what they're asking of a Knox on this play is to stay in and block. Like, that's not what you want from a guy you just paid, and one that is a red zone threat and mismatch. So he's staying in the block. And what that does is it allows Holland to get to the back line to take away, Gabriel Davis. This guy's covered up. There's nowhere to go. There's really nowhere to go. The check down's taken away. And you can see Diggs has, he's bracketed right here. There's nowhere to go. And honestly, from the end zone angle, and like, look at Knox. Is he really making a difference there? He's just blocking with Dawkins. So if this guy were to slip out, there's a chance that he may be open or someone else is going to be open at the very least. Dorsey's not putting out as many guys into routes in the red zone, in the low red zone. And I think it's kind of hindering the offense when we're talking about targets to everyone else except Stephon Diggs.
And it also ties back into what's something we've said so many times, talking about these red zone series, like the area to operate on the field is smaller. Everything is condensed down because you have the back line. There's not this infinite amount of space because you have a cap on the field. So if you run less players into the routes, you're already at a disadvantage because the defense can throw more bodies into that small amount of space and make you have to work harder. But now you're only sending 3 and 4 guys out into the route distribution. And the Dolphins on this rush 4 players. So they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, 6, 7, 7. They've got 7 defenders out there in coverage against 4 in the route distribution. That's an easy advantage for the Miami Dolphins defense. Especially in this scenario, you're sitting there mugging up everything, passing windows, shrinking everything down. There's very little space for Josh Allen to go, to your point. And if you're going to keep players in, you reduce the opportunity for you being able to pull defenders from zone. I love that you mentioned the follow concept piece because that's so important in zone defenses, right? If you have that first guy, he kind of clears things out. And then if you run a second guy through it, you have that vacated space. Who knows on this play, right? Let's say Dawson Knox runs an over. Maybe Melvin Ingram, who drops off the line, maybe he shrinks down a little bit and follows Knox a little bit. And all of a sudden, Stephon Diggs is open. Exactly. You hit it right on the head. Diggs is open coming on that crosser the other way because now there's no Melvin Ingram. And all Allen has to do is just float this ball into the corner there and he's good. Or maybe Ingram stays there and Knox is open in the middle because Landon Roberts, number 52, has to go with Devin Singletary. Or maybe Roberts stays with Knox and Singletary is open. Either way, you reduce the multitude of possibilities you have when you send less players out into the route distribution, especially in an area of the field that has less room to operate. And defense, if they just throw numbers at it, it gives them an even bigger advantage.
Yeah, and here's another one. This one from the Dolphins game. Of course, they're going to run these type of like mesh concept, cross concepts against teams that want to play a lot of man coverage, especially in the low red zone. But again, you're not sending Knox out. You're having him stay in and block here. And just watch how well this is covered up. And I think this is the one that was damn near an interception, but everyone's covered up. I mean, look at all these eyes that are coming here. Diggs is taken away. There's really nowhere to go. And then again, look at Knox. He's really just standing there watching Josh Allen right here off the left side here. Like he doesn't really need to help out here. Like if he's thrown into a route, who knows if he comes open. Just a minor adjustment. And I know the Bills have, if I remember correctly, they've kept Knox in 11 times to pass block already. And I think that's above what he was average wise last year. I'll have to go back and look. But these type of plays, man, like you want Knox in a route and Josh Allen will still be able to create. You want him in a route, especially on these crossing routes, because it just opens up things for him or the other receivers on the field, man. I hate seeing him stand there, do nothing basically. When that guy's already number 92, he's already covered up. He's already covered up. He doesn't need to help. So I want to see him in a
harder on yourself. You're making it harder on yourself to try and operate. And this is where this is one of those plays, like when we talk about the Bills offense at times, when things feel tight or they feel stagnant or things just feel hard, like there's a larger scale reason for it. Sometimes it's just, well, this dude got beaten. This is why it happened. But when we talk about things being hard and talk about things being difficult, this is what we talk about here. And you highlighted there for the situation. You've got this 3rd and 2 situation.
Right.
This is a high leverage play. This is a big money down. This is a big money instance. And you're keeping
like, look at it. And you're right. Cause look at the down. If you look at the down column, they've only run this twice on 2nd down, but the rest of them are third, and 4th down.
Yep.
So, I mean, these are situations, as you said, high leverage money situations, got to have it moments that they're keeping in one of their best players. So that I think needs to be adjusted to, because
you're not only is he one of your best players, he's that chess piece kind of guy, because he should be too big for corners to cover and he should be too athletic for linebackers. He's arguably your most dangerous weapon in the red zone, let alone being one of your good players, like you said.
Yeah, and so same play here, but Knox again kept in to block here, and that rusher kind of goes out wide and forces Josh up into the pocket. But this one's nearly intercepted by, I think that was Amani Hooker on the back end. But again, you're keeping Knox in when you can slide, especially because you have the extra offensive lineman. I know it's Bobby Hart, but you brought that guy in, or actually, yeah, he's the extra offensive lineman there. Like, you have him in there for a reason. He's not even doing anything. So put your receiver, when your tight end, into a route to help your offense here, to help Josh Allen, because he's going to do that anyway. If the guy off the edge, or they send an extra dude to rush Josh Allen, and Knox goes into a route, and that causes Josh Allen to scramble, he's going to do that anyway. So get your other guy out into a route and get some of those better matchups on the back end, and I think you're gonna reap the benefits. Here's another one. That's a mesh cross. We won't go over that one. But this was the last one. This is one that they scored on, and it was a high leverage situation, 4th and 1 against the Titans. And what do? They send Knox out. So they have Kumro to the bottom of the screen, Knox in the slot to the top, Diggs to the very top is the number 1. They have McKenzie, that eye candy. So essentially the Bills have 4 eligibles to the top of the screen. All this motion and everyone out into a route essentially causes that defense to lose Stephon Diggs in the back of the end zone. So the eye candy, the play design creates confusion among the secondary defenders. Who's covering Diggs on those banjo coverages, those switches? No one does. Knox is at the front of the goal line. Diggs is in the end zone for the touchdown, Anthony.
Yeah, you stress the defense when you run these multiple levels of crossers. You force them to have to communicate. And if you reduce the amount of players in the route distribution, let alone the type of route they're running, you reduce the communication that the defense has to engage in. And this is just simple. The Titans, make a mistake. The Bills put them in a situation to potentially make a mistake. They don't pass off properly. They don't communicate, and they bust the coverage. That's not something that will necessarily happen every time, but you increase the odds of it happening by throwing more players into the route distribution in terms of number, and then also throwing your chess piece type of athletes and your matchup winners and the guys that can go out and get you a bucket, making sure they go out into the route distribution, because you get extra, accounting from the defense. There's a difference in obviously running 4 out into the route distribution versus 3. There's also a difference in running 4 out and having 2 of them be Stephon Diggs and Dawson Knox and even Gabe Davis into that mix versus having it be like Jay Kumaro and Tommy Sweeney, because it makes the defense go, do we have to bracket? Do we have to give extra attention? Make sure we're keyed in on this guy. And if you're keyed in on that guy, or you're not keyed in on someone else, this is an example of, and it isn't cherry picked from us. This is the combination of studying all these games and concepts and the data and the film and putting it together. You're seeing why something like this worked versus the previous plays, why they did not. And sometimes it's just as simple of how many, it's math, what numbers do you have in the route distribution versus what numbers does the defense have in coverage, let alone the chess piece in terms of personnel and alignment and formation.
Yeah. And the final opportunity or areas of improvement, we talked about, the short yardage situations. It's something that a lot of people wanted us to analyze, 3rd and 4th and 1 to 2 yards and whatnot. But I felt like by going over the stuff in the red zone, especially when it comes to run, I think you're going to see a lot of the same issues arise in those other situations. And so we're not going to go to both situations and analyze both, but we're going to look at the run game real quick. And we're going to look at the run game first of all. So I got it. Let me see if you guys, hopefully you can see that. I got it sorted by just runs. So all the runs in the red zone are there. And then we're going to look by yards gained, and we're going to look at, some of the lower end gains. So first one is going to be a penalty, and that was a zone read. There's a fumble that was just a botched snap, which sucked because Cook wasn't on that play. Zone read, -2 yards, failed handoff, Allen keeper. So a couple mistakes in there, whether it's mental or physical. But then you can see -2 zone read, -3 zone read, 1 yard zone read. So I'm going to sort it by zone read. Obviously, zone read has been an issue, and I labeled it zone read because sometimes though they are RPO plays, and we talked about RPOs from an overall general sense last year and this year. But I wanted to kind of go over some of those plays because, as you can see, the only real positive play they had with zone reads in the red zone was a 4-yard gain against the Miami Dolphins. So we'll go over that. But if you look at some of where the ball was spotted on the zone replays. So you got the 6-yard line, the 2-yard line, 18-yard line. So that's a little deeper. 6-yard line, 1-yard line, and then 14 and 17-yard line. So there's some opportunities there where they could have, really got the ball into the end zone. So talk about why the Bills want to keep the RPOs and really the zone read game involved in the red zone, Anthony, because of Josh Allen, obviously, but what he brings and what he, really forces the defense to do when he's in that area of the field.
It harkens back to, what we mentioned briefly earlier, like the whole notion and idea of the RPO is to make the defense wrong no matter what they do. You are IDing and it ties into the zone read as well, reading that edge defender and keep or run or whatever you're doing. But it allows you to be right no matter what and make the defense wrong almost no matter what. And that's just for like a regular type of situation and call. Then you start adding more intricacies to it when you have a quarterback like Josh Allen who can beat you with his arm and beat you with his legs. He is a true dual threat quarterback, and he's like a 9.5 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 on both the ground and with his arm. So it's just a constant problem for the defense to have to account for it. You're just constantly putting them in conflict and putting them in a bind because you're using Josh Allen's skill set as a chess piece to make the defense wrong no matter what. So it's understandable why they keep going back to these looks. But if you don't execute up front on the offensive line like they don't on this first play, all it takes is one blown assignment or one guy getting beat really bad, and it can just wreck the entire concept. In this instance, Christian Wilkins makes a great play up front and kind of gums up the works.
Yeah, and you're going to see a couple of these plays. It does come down to execution, and maybe it's because they're still learning some of the concepts, but you're going to see Gilliam come across the formation, and this is, it's labeled RPO, but this is probably more of a run with a pass tag here. Not necessarily, they're not necessarily reading anyone, but nonetheless, like here comes Gilliam across the formation. They're running inside zone with Singletary. Yes, Wilkins blows this play up, but then Gilliam, the timing of this play is just terrible because Gilliam kind of gums up the run all in himself. So I don't know if he's coming across to pick up the edge defender right there, or if he's supposed to insert inside. Either way, this play is blown up, but it's really blown up because of the inability of Gilliam to get across the formation. So the timing of that play is awful, but they still got 4 yards. So even in that play, this was their best play from a zone read.
This RPO was the best. This was the best.
This was the best play. All right. And honestly, if he doesn't bump into him, maybe Singletary scores here. So that was a pretty big mistake on that play. Let's go to the next one. So another, split flow type play with an offensive guy coming across the formation here. Once again, Gilliam, and you're going to see Josh hand it off, and it's blown up. Again, I don't know what's happening here aside from Wilkins really reestablishing the line of scrimmage here. Saffold's a little too high. Wilkins is disgusting, but it blows up. Gilliam coming across the formation, and it keeps this linebacker right in this gap, and it just shut down. So, again, the design of this play, I don't like it. It does look like maybe Knox is, again, kind of peeling out, so more of a run with a pass tag. But as you can see, in that game, it was terrible. So now we go to the Steelers game here. This is one that got 8 yards, but there's a hold called right there on Bates. So really nice RPO. This looks like more of a true RPO where he's reading this guy. He doesn't fall into his run fit, so the ball's handed off. But as you can see, a self-inflicted penalty with a huge hole. I mean, huge hole up the middle. But that 8-yard gain is brought back because of the penalty to Ryan Bates.
Damn, both referees threw flags on that one. They both were like, hold it, and just chuck the flags there. Yeah, them using it in a variety of scenarios. So this time it's on the 18-yard line. So like right as they just got into the red zone there. So you're seeing it's not even just like, well, they're not successful in this area or that. It's just kind of little things regardless. And I think that points to, the larger picture of what's going on with this type of call or this type of concept or this type of scheme. Like, where are the misexecutions and miscommunications, if there are any, like coming through? And no matter how you draw it up, it ties to the inefficiencies that we've seen in the run game. And this was a game where that Steelers game is just a one-off. The Bills had some successful runs in that game. Yeah. But you're seeing just, if you're off in the slightest on these zone reads, again, too, like the zone read and the RPO action, you're making a real-time read if you're Josh Allen. This isn't like a predetermined thing. You have to read what's happening. And so if you're reading something because you're like, oh, boom, if it's A, I do this. If it's B, I do that. And then on the snap, you're like, oh, cool, it's A. But then something happens to throw it off and it wrecks it. You're already committed because you made that real-time action and you're done. Like it has a high degree of difficulty at times, even though it's simplistic. if someone poorly executes up front.
Yeah, and we're talking poor execution. This one really, it looks to be on Josh. So you get the eye candy across the formation with Crowder. They're again running that little read of this defender, and that defender sits flat. And so more times than not, this ball should be given to Singletary here. And I know it's first down here, first and goal. And he gets 2 yards, but he also takes a big hit. But this is a play like, yes, Wagner is sitting in this hole, but normally on this inside zone, you're going to get that cutback right here. So if Josh attacks the mesh with Singletary and then tacks this guy, there should be a cutback lane behind him, and Singletary wouldn't likely be going up this way. But either way, this should have been a give. So again, bad execution on the zone read type play here against the Rams. Next one, this is another similar play. This is a loss, a 1-yard loss on this play versus the Dolphins. Again, the Bills will like to run these type of plays versus teams that like to play man coverage. But watch the charge here by the defensive lineman. Josh is executing the mesh. But again, what is this guy? McKenzie's coming across the formation, that eye candy, that split flow. You see him get blown up right there, runs in the Singletary. That is just terrible. So you can see a lot of this comes down to timing and execution. I don't understand what happened here, but my guess is, McKenzie's supposed to come across the formation and then get as he gets to right here, the ball probably should have been snapped. And then he runs that slide route. And then you got the smash concept right here with Dawson Knox. But instead, watch what happens here. It gets gummed up, as we like to say. And Josh Allen, he takes a huge hit from Elandon Roberts and Jerome. I think that's Baker there, right? 50, yep.
Yeah, 55.
So these type of things can't happen in the low red zone when you're trying to get in there and get points and get your rushing game going and to become a threat to match the passing offense, whether it's in the red zone or outside of the red zone.
This one is really disappointing from an execution standpoint, or not, and from honestly like a design standpoint as well. Like, you mentioned the McKenzie piece. Like, you're not going to bring McKenzie in that motion to kick out a defensive tackle or end like Sealer or Jerome Baker. So you're not using him for that. So it's like, okay, you want him out into the route distribution. Why is he only coming in? Why is he not already in motion before the snap is there? Because he's not going to be able to get across, especially if Quisenberry is crashing down onto Wilkins like that. Like, you can tell Quisenberry is crashing down onto Wilkins, and then he's trying to climb to Roberts, who, shout out to Roberts. I love this jump step. It's almost like a running back jump cut that he makes at the goal line to avoid Quisenberry and get onto Josh Allen. Like real nice and athletic. And like you said, he crushes Allen. So McKenzie doesn't get into his route distribution, and it's just gummed up from the beginning. Roberts doesn't get pulled. It doesn't take Roberts anywhere. He doesn't get hit at the second level. There's no type of real resistance for that entire left side for the Dolphins. Roberts, Baker, and Sealer, like, they just crash down. Even Holland comes through a little bit. It's just, it's not a great design, and then it's even worsely executed.
Yeah, it's not good design. The execution's bad, but I'll also throw some kudos to the Dolphins. Obviously, they're a division opponent of the Bills, so they know these type of plays are coming, and they schemed it really well. And so the first thing I want to know is, like, who's the read? Is he the read, or is he the read? All right, first of all, that needs to be figured out, because one of those guys should be blocked. Then I imagine, this. Yeah,
you're letting them both go free.
You're letting them both go. So again, maybe this is the way it was drawn up, and the Dolphins did a better job of scheming against it. So that's fine, but you can see that Sealer's going right for the running back. So he's got the dive. Who's got the quarterback? Baker does. So this is schemed rather well. And it's even better because they got Holland one-on-one with Knox. And obviously as Knox releases and goes out into route, and then Holland sees that it's a run, he can now insert too. So this was a good design by the defense, but Dorsey's got to do a better job in these situations when he wants to call these type of plays, because we've seen it far too many times, and it crept up last week. So on this play, the Bills, let me just go from the end zone angle. So they have a screen right here to Cook. Awesome. We want him involved. But they also got this like wide zone looking run to McKenzie, really nice design on the first drive of the game. And Josh, for some reason, he keeps it, which is fine. But he shouldn't be pitching it. That's not part of the play. That's him ad-libbing, guys. If you guys watch that play from the end zone angle, this is Josh Allen ad-libbing. Once he decided not to give it to McKenzie because this guy is set flat right here, that ball needs to go out to Cook. Now, I understand there's a defenseman in the area. So if that guy is in the passing lane and you don't want to throw it, he's got to get down. Josh Allen's got to eat the play, get down, don't take a big hit, live to see another day. Instead, he tries ad-libbing, and then that's where you can get in trouble because McKenzie's not expecting the ball. He's not able to pick up the bouncing ball. He's trying to look upfield to see who's coming to hit him. The ball squirts out, and the Chiefs get it on a really nice design play. But again, a zone read, RPO type play that failed the Bills in the red zone.
Yeah, I felt bad for McKenzie in game because it seemed like a lot of people in the Twitter world were just like, "Oh, what's McKenzie doing on this?" and blah blah blah. And yeah, to your point, like this is an ad lib from Josh Allen. You can see McKenzie just looks back just to see like what's going on the play. Yeah, exactly. Now he's not looking back to be like, "Oh, I'm supposed to get the ball here." Like he's not turning ready. You see no action from his hands, his body language. This is not a player who is anticipating that he's about to get the ball. And that's because, yeah, to your point, Josh ad-libbed on this one. And it's again, it ties into there's a variety of inefficiencies that have led to the lack of success in the red zone that we have seen so far this year. But again, we saw some inefficiencies last year. They ended up being one of the better teams as the year progressed. But what we're showing here is just a lot of different things to clean up, whether it's execution, whether it's design, whether it's alignment, whether it's what personnel is being used and what's being asked within those assignments from those personnel groupings. There's a variety of things that the Bills can self-scout and course correct over this bye week and potentially get better in an area of, again, this is a 5-1 football team that's one of the best, if not the best in the NFL. Imagine what they could be if they get more efficient and more dangerous in the red zone. I hate this one. This one makes me want to throw up. I hate it.
We're going to end on this one too, because this is the last play of this zone read series and of this breakdown. So you see the safety coming down. I think that's Brandon Jones. And once again, they have a free rusher. Okay. Like there's no way based on the alignment of Gabriel Davis, like there's no way he can pick this guy up. There's just no way. And so they get a free runner and Josh is like, okay, you know, am I going to hand it or am I going to keep it? And so he hands it off to Singletary, but that's blown up because you can see they know when it's coming. It's so predictable. You see Jalen Phillips slant inside. So they have the dive covered with him and they have the quarterback covered with Brandon Jones. So they know when it's coming. They know the situations. And then you see them blow up the play and then watch Jones 29 look at Josh Allen like, I got you. You see, he pointed at him. He's like, see, we know it's coming. So again, this is a divisional opponent. So I understand they're going to have the tendencies down a little more when it comes to Josh Allen, the Bills offense, but it's been way too predictable when they pulled these out. We saw the one against the Titans in that night game.
I was going to say the same one on the fourth down. It wasn't red zone, but it was like fourth down. Same exact thing. Got blown up. Free runner off the edge. Kevin Byard knew exactly what was coming. He crashed down. Done. Same thing too. That boundary side safety, just like Brandon Jones, Byard was in the same situation. Crashes down. It's over.
Yeah, and so again, this concludes this breakdown in the zone read stuff. This is the type of stuff, again, there's some good stuff, there's some bad stuff, but there are areas for sure, even with as good as the Bills offense is, where they can improve. And there are a ton of those opportunities. And, you know, you can try to uncover some of those things just with stats. You can try to uncover some of those things with film, but more times than not, you're going to get the best context by combining the two. And we hope that we did that today for you guys.
Yeah, that was the goal of this uncovered, episode here for us. And, hopefully the first in a long line of this series as we start to, like Erik said, peel back the layers and then give you guys and girls a peek behind the curtain in terms of the process that we go through in terms of scouting and analysis with the advanced metrics, with the film, all of it, and then marrying those two things to get the holistic perspective and view and context that we put together in order to really analyze this game and this team and every ounce of it. And this was this was cool, fun.
Man. I love this. I love this stuff. It's a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. Like, charting, I do not like charting. I don't miss charting. It's something that I love, analyzing the film and then having the data all in one spot and huddle like that. And that was one of my favorite things to do after games as a coach. But doing it and then try to create content and find angles and perspectives like we did today. Like it's fun, but it's also very, very taxing and you can get burned out very quickly, which is why it's nice to kind of just do it every once in a while when we talk about these uncovered episodes. So we appreciate everyone jumping in. Adam says, I think it'd like that RPO design more if it was a forward pass to McKenzie on the right instead of a handoff. Sure. But you also got to think about that. If you're faking it to him and they have someone accounting for on that option type play, more times than not, that guy is not going to be open for that throw anyways. And so you don't know. It's tough because especially in the red zone, these are bang bang plays. Like RPOs are awesome,
instantaneous. Yep.
You want options for Josh Allen. You want to have a run option, whether to a running back, but you want to have Josh as a run option, but you also want to have a passing option. So we like the menu, but they just have to refine how they're running it. And we thought honestly that they wouldn't miss a beat in this department when it comes to RPOs because of Joe Brady and his connection to the RPO world with Moorhead. We talked about that in the film room back over the summer. And then of course Dorsey being in the system and running a lot of the stuff Daboll did.
Yeah, I think refinement is a good way to talk about it. There are some things that just need to be tweaked and some rough edges that need to be smoothed out. And
no panic though. That's the thing.
Yes.
That's the overall conclusion. Yes, they are struggling in some areas in the run game, especially when we talk some of those zone reads and RPOs.
But they're fixable.
But they're fixable. And so yes, the conclusion of all of this is that you don't have to panic because things are still going to work out. Again, they have Josh Allen, so I mean it's going to work out, right?
Knock on wood. I have to say knock on wood. I don't want to jinx that something happens to Josh Allen. But yeah, that's the huge piece. You've got a fixer and an eraser in Josh Allen combined with several other, standout pieces on this offense and someone in Ken Dorsey who has an understanding of that. And again, he's working out the kinks too. He's 6 games into a job that he's never had before in his life with roles and responsibilities that he's never had before in his life. And those situational aspects of football, third downs, 2-minute drills, low red zone right. In general. Those are those pieces that you start to get a feel for more of as you're into that world and within that type of role. And yeah, so we hope that there should be some good things to come for Ken Dorsey and this Bills offense in the red zone, an offense that has been largely successful on the year through the first 6 games. The Bills are 5-1. And that'll do it for us here on this debut episode.
Yes.
Cover One Uncovered, as we peel back the layers in the scouting process and the film and the analytics and how we go about things and how pro, scouts and coaches and coordinators and position coaches, anything and everything, how they put together their game plans to give you folks a peek behind the curtain and uncover some of those things. We appreciate everyone who joined us here on this Sunday morning. We know that, this came about towards the end of the week and it's a Sunday. People have plans, but, the questions and the thoughts and the conversation back and forth with each other, with us, and just being here. We appreciate you folks for joining us for that. And also you folks being here for this means you're also Cover One insiders. So we appreciate you folks all being insiders and joining us here on that. Yeah. Thank you very much. This has been a tremendous thing. Eric, you got anything else before we send everybody on their way?
Yeah, just get to the Cover One YouTube channel. You guys know you're insiders, but get to the channel, consume all the content this week. Obviously, we have a ton of it coming live during the week, but we have some stuff that maybe you haven't caught up on, whether it's the film rooms or the video breakdowns. We have everything on the site, the YouTube channel, and then of course the site. We have some great writers on the staff this year, and as I said during our promo, we wouldn't be able to do any of this without your guys' support. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you for being an insider. And if you're not, an insider, let people know about us. Like, we're going to show this later on YouTube. If you're not an insider, join up. If you know someone that may be interested, send this to them. You have our permission to do that. We want people to join up and talk football with us, but more importantly, learn. That's why we do this. We want to explain the game in a way that you guys can digest it, take a complex game, make it simple for everyone. And the more people that we have in the fan base that buy into that type of perspective and want to watch the game in that manner, the better off the fan base is as a whole. So we appreciate all the support. And as I said, if you know someone that's not an insider, send them this video, get them on board, send a segment, let them know, hey, this is a timestamp for this. You had questions about this, like, use it for your bar room debates today at the bar, with the Bills off. Like, go ahead, start an argument, bring up some of the stats that we showed you guys. And that's something that we do find, entertaining. And most of all, again, you're buying in and you're trying to become a better fan because as a whole, the fan base is way better. So appreciate all the support, guys. And thanks for tuning in today.
Yeah, very well said. And our aim, the more that you understand the game, the more you will enjoy the game even further, a game that you already like and appreciate, and that'll only grow the more you learn about it. And that's our goal and mission here with this series and at the brand. And again, thank you to everyone for tuning in, for watching this, consuming the content in whatever which way, shape, and form that you do. We hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well. Stay safe, Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. This has been the first episode of Cover One Uncovered. We will see you next time, potentially in this series, or you'll see us in the Cover One film room, or you'll see me on Disguise Coverage or Cover One Football Weekly. Who knows?
Yeah.
A lot of stuff to happen. Appreciate you folks.
Thanks, guys.
Godspeed. Take care of one another. And as always, go Bills.